Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I haven't said that in so long. It's so nice to be back. This is the Rewinds Rewind. We're here. We promised off-season content, and we're delivering. So, our first off-season podcast is a winner rankings of all of the Big Brother Rewinds main series winners that we've had so far. There are 15 winners that we have to choose from. Technically 13 because someone has won 3 times, which it is what it is at this point, but 15 separate games where we're specifically ranking people based on their winning games. Of course, almost all of these people, which was actually something that was kind of surprising, almost all of these people have come back in some capacity for a second or even third season, but we are judging them and ranking them based specifically on how they did in the confines of that specific winning game. So, I am here with a very special co-host. I have a half host hat today, so it's going to be me and this other lovely person, my other co-host. Introduce yourself.
Yes, it is I, Jack, here as the co-host of this podcast.
Woo!
Um,
Yay!
for me,
Yay.
being someone that hosted all but one of these winners, they hold a very special place in my heart. They're like my children, but unfortunately, I do have to pick favorites. So
Yeah.
I'm here to do them.
It's like what every parent says. They may say they don't have favorites, but they absolutely do. And we'll be showing all of our cards with
I
that.
feel like we've mentioned our unilateral favorite before. It's not a secret.
No, that's true.
We know.
Yeah. But yeah,
Hi,
we also
Aria.
have in separate capacities, they may not speak up for every single one, just because, as Jack said, he's really the only person, and Shinx in some capacity, not as a host, but the only person that was really here for the whole run of it. But we have 4 other lovely people that are going to chime in. I'm sorry, 5 other lovely people that are going to chime in whenever they feel the need. Why don't you all introduce yourselves to the lovely people of the world?
Hello, I am pilot Sheila Kennedy, DDS, also known as Swan, your favorite Rewinds flop turned host.
Largely considered the caser of Big Brother Rewinds.
Yes.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I am Graham. Normally this is where I would plug 911, but unfortunately it is
My
not
God.
streaming currently. It is also an off season. So in celebration and commiseration, I will be here today.
And Graham will be doing his separate podcast in which he relates every main character of 911 to a player of Big Brother Rewinds.
Wait, I should.
We will
Oh, my
not
Lord.
hang in.
Okay. Who's next? We have a few more people.
All right. Well, as we mentioned, it is I, Shinx, the only other person who sat here through all this shit. Whether I hosted you, I think I've hosted all these winners technically and played with them.
Or
I've hosted
is
everyone.
one of said winners.
And
that
I am one
in
of
the
them.
ranking.
I've hosted myself, of course.
Yeah, as well
But
as
yeah,
Graham, who just was one of our also winners of this series.
Yeah, I played with everyone. Well, I hosted everyone. I played with Howie. I am myself, obviously. So I've got a pretty good grasp. But I'm not going to talk too much. 'cause
Would you say that you
but
played yourself on your seasons?
I did. I definitely did. But it worked itself out.
We got there. Yeah, we got there eventually.
And yeah, that's
I'm
it for me.
well.
Last but certainly not.
I
No, there's still 2.
No, it is
no,
not.
there's
Last
two.
season.
There
You
are
left the
two
ladies
women now.
last.
Second
There
to
are two
last. Okay,
fucking
I'm
women.
sorry. Let me
Jackson
correct
said
myself.
women,
All
women
women
count
are
as
the
half
same.
people.
Okay,
Second,
Women
second to last
consolidate.
and least, we have Sydney.
Right. I am horse breeder Rachel Philibba and also prisoner Lori Laughlin,
Oh yeah.
who got to witness gay serial killer Howie and psychopath killer Julia. What's her name? What was her name?
Julia
Roberts?
What was her name?
Roberts.
I forgot what Julia
Big
Roberts'
mistake.
Aunt
name
of
was.
Emma
Huge.
Roberts?
Huge.
Like,
I'm
come
so
on
used
now.
to calling her Cole now. So anyway, that's
fair.
me.
And last
Oh
but
my
certainly
God,
not
sorry.
least.
Cole, I loved you and Aaron Brockovich. Anyway.
It's true.
Hi, my name is Alex. I am Shelly, aka Isabel, and I played with both Graham and Shanks. So even though they probably can't really talk about their winning games, I can.
It's perfect. There we go. Yeah,
Exactly.
we have a lovely little crew here, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. So basically, how this whole ranking worked, we had 3 little separate groups. So I, Jackson, myself, ranked all 15 winners. I had my own little process that I'll go through when it comes up. Jack, the other co-host, of course, and former main host, did his own ranking as well, 1 through 15. And then we also sent out a poll to the spectators that allowed them to, however they see fit, rank all 15 players 1 to 15. So we took the rankings of all 3 of those and we averaged them all together. And I now hold in my hands the master list. So let's get right down to it.
Do you want to explain to the audience real quick how you did your specific breakdowns, Jack and Jackson? How you kind of
Oh, sure.
your thought process before we actually get into it, and kind of what you
Yeah.
thought about when you were ranking?
Yeah, so I broke up I basically had I say I ranked every winner like 1 to 15, but really I ranked them all 4 times. I kind of broke them into categories of something that I like value in the game. So there's just like the strategic ability, like how well did you play the game and how well did you make certain moves to best benefit yourself. And then I have the social part. How much did people like you? How much did your relationships with people either save you from being on the block, save you in certain situations? Just how liked were you by your cast? And then I have the physical game, which is obviously straight up just like how many competitions you win. I took every winner and broke down how many competitions they played in and how many they won and made it a percentage and literally just put like 1 through 15. Like it was the most objective thing I did in this whole thing. And just ranked them like that. And then my last thing, which is very important to me, maybe the most important, I did a 1 through 15 of how entertaining were they and how much I enjoyed them playing, because I think you can have kind of a bad game, but as long as it's enjoyable to me, I'm gonna rank you higher, like based on that automatically. So that was my 4 categories, and I kind of averaged them out. How did you go about it, Jack?
I personally avoid doing math at all costs. So
No, that's
for
fair.
me,
I've done too much math than I've ever wanted to in the last like 2 hours. So
bless your soul. But for me, I was much more subjective about it. So I just looked at what I value in a winner, which to me is intentionality, seeing your path to the end and doing what it takes to increase your chances of making that path happen. Adaptability, having a good social game, which can range from being dominant and having everyone trusting you to having just key connections that get you through the game. Being able to win competitions when it matters is definitely something that matters. And then I did look at difficulty in terms of not only how hard was the field they were up against in terms of the quality of their cast, but also if they were faced with adversity, did they do any like really impressive moves to get out of that tight spot? Because just because you avoid danger doesn't necessarily mean to me that you played better. Sometimes if you're in a corner and can overcome that, that's even more impressive.
absolutely.
100%.
Well, great. Let's get right down to it. Unfortunately, in every list, there has to be a last place. This is no different. In 15th place, ranked, I don't want to say the worst Big Brother Rewinds winner, but I guess
The
that's
least best.
yeah,
For the time
I guess
being,
that's technically what it is.
The
So,
least valuable.
according to
Yeah.
those involved here.
and honestly, you're still a winner. So, like,
We
many of
loved
these
you
other
all
people can't
equally,
relate.
except for our number 1 favorite. We
Yeah,
love you
I'd
the
much
most.
rather be the worst winner than the best loser. So, think about
Exactly.
That's right,
Uh,
Alex.
Please. What was that? Oh, yeah.
yeah. But
Me
yeah,
trying to drag Blaze and you guys dragging me. Love that.
in 15th place, we have our winner of Big Brother Rewinds 12, Rachel Riley.
Should we clap? Feels mean
Yay!
clapping.
Yes.
No, I feel like we should clap for everyone because they're all winners.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Winner.
No, exactly. This is to celebrate our winners, to
That
be
is
Exactly.
honest.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
I do think it's very fitting for BB12 to be at the bottom here. We saw how that season panned out. There was like 3 quits right off the bat. So it was definitely an easier field to deal with.
Yeah.
But what I think did work for Rachel and why she won is because within like the tighter group of active players, she was in good with everyone, wasn't viewed as a big threat, but then still was able to take out the threats ahead of her. So it was like a social game mainly and positioning within that.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to say, I do think Rachel being on this season kind of, and just being like kind of the main person of this season just by being the winner probably did hurt her rankings quite a bit in the grand scheme of things. But that being said, she did. I mean, she took out the main players of that season. She took out Kathy. She took out Hayden. Like she took out Reagan. She very well could have gone to the end with like the people maybe that she particularly liked more, which probably would have been like Reagan and Kathy. But she was able to identify in that end game the exact person to go with, which was Matt, and she won pretty handily. And she still played a good game. Like I wouldn't say her game was terrible, but I think one thing that did stand out to me through our discussions that we talked about was it did kind of feel like that the game was almost happening to Rachel, and Rachel wasn't necessarily imparting a lot onto the game. So I think that kind of went into my mind and might explain my personal ranking. She was also 15 on my own personal ranking, and kind of the ranking overall. But that still being said, she had some very good moves at the end, and she was very close to. I remember specifically Hayden was up in that final three or in that final HOH, and I think he was up like 2-0 or like
He was
3-0 or
yeah.
something.
Yeah,
He
was
dropped the ball.
0.
Yeah.
And she came back and won
And-
the next 4 points.
And I gotta give her props because Touchy Subjects is not an easy competition, let alone when you're playing from behind. It can almost like
Terrifying.
compound itself and be really stressful. So like that alone, her being able to come back from that and boot Hayden and still get to the end and kind of cinch it up was massive props to her.
I also think that I love a social winner, but I think if you take her social game and put it in a different season, it does not have the same power and doesn't get her anywhere close to as far as it did in this cast.
Yeah, it really does
To
not
give her
because really that group, that last group of like five, final six kind of were like the main people that talked. And even then,
I
like
do want
Andrew was in it. So
I do want to give her some credit to like maybe if she was in a different season, she would give more social. Like with that cast, why
That's
give
true.
more than you need?
that's a great point.
And she did
really- yeah, you
kind
have
of
to-
break the winner curse to an extent, sort of, kind of,
That's true.
loosely. Asterisk. It's only happened 3 times between here and BB Can, where technically someone won a season before they really won. But yeah, winner's curse. She beat it, so good
And
for
you know
her.
what? How iconic is it for us to still have Rachel Riley as a winner?
Exactly. We don't even
Big
have
Brother Big
Nicole.
Lions.
For it.
We
So-
don't even have Nicole. We have Rachel. Like,
Exactly. But
yeah,
yes,
as the premier spec of BBR 12, to the point where like I was asked to host the next season because I was so active in the spec chat. Yeah, it was pretty much like the biggest knock against her is that she just didn't have as tough competition as a bunch of the other seasons. It was kind of a cakewalk through pre-jury, and even some of jury was pretty easy. And her biggest like she was overshadowed by players like Reagan and Hayden and Kathy especially. However, you know, to her credit, she did get all of them out. In the tightest part of the game, she got 3 major threats out of the game from final 5 to the end, which is pretty damn impressive to see them all go in a row. It was just kind of that was like her only opposition in the game, really. And she just, you know, so, and she was just kind of the least flashy of those 4, but
yeah,
you know,
which
she's the one who
isn't
won,
her
so
fault
it worked.
either. Like obviously she didn't ask to be on the cast and she didn't like cast it herself, but still it is something we have to take into account. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, like she played the cards given to her, and she
Yeah.
played them well, and she fucking won. You know, like
Mhm.
so.
Queen.
And also, by the way, I feel like people really undervalue BB12. Like, I do feel like it had its moments, and I think people dismiss it wholesale, and that is unfair to that cast.
I mean, I think I talked about it almost weekly on during
Yeah.
16 during the
Okay,
rematch.
I
good.
had fun. I had fun.
That's what I was gonna
watching.
say. I feel as though I said that at one point. I'm like, everyone shits on 12, and yet we keep bringing it up. So, like,
true.
hello.
We're not
iconic.
talking about 3, that's for sure. So
I
it has
think
that.
12's reputation makes it funny and campy, whereas 3 was just like,
A
you
slog.
know,
It's Arcabone.
Yeah.
It's basically like
12
BB12.
also-
basically. It was so bad.
12
It's
also-
good.
And
Mhm,
it came
mhm.
off of arguably the best season of Rewinds and then led into
A
13,
nice
which was
little
another really
sandwich.
strong season. So it's just kind of really tough when you're surrounded by two really strong seasons. You kind of fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I'm glad you guys bring up Big Brother 3 because actually in 14th
Oh.
spot, our next winner is indeed the winner of Big Brother 3, Tanya.
Vroom vroom.
Zab, we love you. Go
Oh
Zab.
my god.
Yeah, no,
We
Zav,
love you too, Miranda. I can't believe I just said that, but we do.
I've played
I
with
guess.
Zav multiple times, and I know that he's capable of such a strong game. So he's here in the 14th spot, being on a similar caliber cast to 12. And I think for him, unlike Rachel, he did not stand out socially among this cast earlier on. He, I think, just wasn't invested because it wasn't the most interesting. It was a slower paced season, and I don't blame him for that. But he wasn't a power player for that reason. But when Lori instigated the flip later on in the game to vote out Eric and they got Amy on board, they were able to flip the script on the power players. And Tanya benefited from that just as much as Lori did. And them together, they ran that end game all the way to the final three. And then Tanya made the move she needed to by cutting Lori. So I feel like while it was not a very social game by any means, it was a very strategically sound game, and like that end game they cleaned up and they did what needed to be done, and I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that in my mind, I do kind of have like groupings of these particular winners just as almost like a tier. And I do think that I kind of see Rachel and Tanya in a similar like tier of where they're at. But to me, the thing that stood out with Tanya is maybe not so much in that first half, like you said, but in that second half, it really felt like Tanya had so much agency in the game and was actively driving and like making decisions that benefited her the most. So
Unintended.
that was a main reason why I bumped Tanya above where Rachel is.
And then I also will say I did look back at Tanya's diary rooms, and earlier on in that season, she was talking about wanting to use shields and wanting to keep a lower threat level. So I think maybe it got kind of carried away further than she expected, where she had to get to the end with Gary to win, really. But she still had that GOAT player around that she could take with her and still had that path there and saw it and made the right moves through the whole second half of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Um, she exactly what you said. She saw her path. She knew what she had to do, and she executed it perfectly. I think very similar to what we just said about Rachel. And that is a skill that I personally think really can't be taught. You kind of have to just know how to be able to identify and do that. So all the props to her. And of course, we did see um, Tanya come back in 14. We're not ranking anything based on that, but she came back and proved how much of a lovely and fun person she is.
Yeah, I will say one of my favorite Tanya moments ever does come from Big Brother Rewinds 14. And it's
Oh
her
Lord.
winning the battleship competition and killing every single other competitor in one turn
So iconic.
and winning. It was really good. It was really funny. And that alone was definitely worth her coming back. So
And I
I did.
remember in the casting process of 14 because we did really want to bring back like all winners or all like
And
legend caliber like players, yeah, and Jeebin. Um and I remember discussing the thought of bringing back Tanya and I thought it was such like a cool idea and almost like it's stupid to say that a winner like needs to redeem themselves or whatever, but it being so long ago and um uh, people not really having a solid answer as to like the skills she possessed as to how she won. I think she came back and she proved it in spades. And
yeah, and a little bit inside baseball here, but for All Stars season 7, she was narrowly outside of that cast just because we went with someone that had more of a storyline to be told and like untapped potential, someone who didn't quite get the win. So I was not sure if she'd ever have a chance to return. So I was really glad to see that she had a chance to continue her story and to play on a more active, to say the least, a more energetic cast on season 14.
Yeah,
I did
geez,
wanna-
I cannot think of two more opposite ends of the spectrum seasons than season 3 and season 14. Like, oh, I'm surprised she didn't like break her neck with the whiplash.
I did want to
I
throw this
broke
in.
mine.
Yeah,
Oh my god. I want to throw in that I think Zav was maybe a me cat. I don't remember. It was like right after Crystal 7. And I've seen Zav play 5 wins, and he's won 3 of them, including this. And the 2 that he lost were Crystal Legend seasons and Rewind 14. So Zav is a pretty like solid player. And this him winning did not, I think I winner picked him, if I remember correctly, and it didn't surprise me. And that's all I just want to say, that he's really good, and I want to give
He is.
people their
Just-
flowers.
yeah.
He got me out twice in org, so nothing but respect.
He did. He got Jack
my
out. I
ride or
wanted
die.
revenge, and then I let him
Yeah,
pass after getting Jack out, and then he won. So yeah,
and he was
got
my
us
ride or
both.
die in the shit show that was Big Brother Over the Top. So we love you, Zap.
We love you, Zav.
Great.
True.
So let's move on.
Zav is the love of my life. Just had to throw that in there. Okay.
There we go. We're moving on to we had an earlier era winner with Zav, Big Brother 3. We're kind of moving into more of a mid-season, like series winner. As we have from Big Brother 8, Danielle Donato.
Woo! Yay!
Graham is scowling at the camera.
No,
He's still bitter.
Never.
Grant, put down the butcher's knife.
Yeah.
We have someone that is very experienced with Danielle Donato's winning game. Would you like to talk, Graham?
Sure. Yeah. I really, really, really loved Danielle. We were basically ride or die allies in my season, or so I thought. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do the bitter stick. No, she was great. She was super, super competitively dominant. One of the best physical games we've had on Big Brother Rewinds, I would say. It's in the what number?
I was about to say I can check.
Yeah, Jackson actually does have those stats. I know she's in the top, like, well, I thought he had the stats.
I have
Looking
it
like,
right
according to your
here.
list.
Danielle is number 5.
Yeah,
she is the
Other winners.
she's the 5th most competitive winner. She competed in 17 competitions and won 7 of them. So she had a 41% win rate in any competition.
Yeah,
So
Danielle, the thing that really stood out with Danielle was that she was extremely savvy about knowing when to make moves. And I think we talked about that with Tanya a little bit. It's like that's not really something you can teach. It's like you kind of know it or you figure it out by like learning instinctually, but it's not just something that everybody gets. Everybody picks up really quickly, especially in orgs. So her social game was not tremendous. I will say her social game and her ability to kind of make allies across party lines, because our season actually ended up being a really split down the middle season after like kind of a dominating alliance took over during the pre-jury. So her ability to kind of reach across party lines was a little bit maybe more lacking than some of her other allies, but
I couldn't for on that topic.
yeah.
So in terms of her social game earlier on, she pretty much just vocalized that she knew she wasn't making connections outside of her alliance, and that because of the time she was willing to give to the org, she was at peace with that. She was okay with that, which is by all means, go for it. That's great. It just does end up factoring into the rankings here.
Yeah.
But those outsiders ended up realizing that there was an alliance they weren't part of and flipped the script at that point. So I think that is part of that social game. But
Yeah, a lot of that does have to do with the fact that there wasn't a lot of extending out of that inner core that was created. That is a good pick. So yeah, but she was really savvy about when she got rid of the power players, just like Tanya, right? Of like getting rid of Dustin, getting rid of me, taking Joe to the end, Blaze, who we'll talk about later, probably when we get to season 15 rankings. It was, so she was really savvy about that. So I do have to give her a lot of props for that. She beat me. So,
I do think
I did want
a pattern. No, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say to talk about her early social game. She got into one of the most infamous rewind arguments about squares and
Okay,
rectangles.
thank you for bringing this up. Thank you.
On week 2, when the HOH was looking for a replacement nominee, and she was antagonizing HOH, and the fact that she didn't go up, insane to me. But that's all I have to
Antagonized them
say.
over the definition of squares versus
And
rectangles or something extremely stupid.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Wait, okay,
I remember
what was
like
the
losing my
argument?
mind in Spec Lounge.
I think
Oh,
it
you'll
was
have to go
literally,
read
like-
it because it's
TLDR, just that all squares are rectangles.
'Cause
and
I think,
no
like,
rectangles are
I think-
squares.
Matt works.
No, that's true.
in-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello works in math stuff or something.
They were
like
arguing
that, or
the same
study
side
math.
of different coins. It was
It's like a semantics thing.
he was
and,
like, "Oh my god, there's number." I was like, he brought math into it. I'm like, it's just shapes. What are you doing math?
And I was fucking sitting there in my DR like, oh my god, I can't believe I just made a ride or die alliance with this person.
and she's about to go on the block. Week
And
2
she's
for
about to
arguing
go on the
about
block
shapes.
next to my other ride or die
And
ally.
she's about to be the next victim of the mic maggots.
Ew.
Because we have
I
to
will
bring up
hear
the mic maggots in every podcast.
No, we don't.
I was a
Yes,
mic
we do.
maggot.
I
It's
am a
true.
maggot.
and a jomosexual.
Yes.
The foremost jomosexual. Actually, I started a revolution in Spec Lounge.
My
True.
two
I'm
biggest
gonna
enemies.
say a kind of pattern for these lower tiered winners is they kind of suffer from like the boring org strategy of which makes sense as a good strategy. That's why they won. But like we're taking the flashy players to the end that you're aligned with, and then getting them all out. Like that's the reason these people are ranked so low, is because there were other players on their season who overshadowed them. However, they did manage to get those players out.
Yep.
So that's kind of the pattern for these like bottom three, especially. I will say one thing in defense of Danielle's game is that this was the America's Player twist, where Spec Lounge had control over Dustin, who was Danielle's closest ally. And we have a sick and twisted Spec Lounge. So because Dustin and Danielle were ride or die allies, the Spec Lounge was constantly trying to use Dustin as America's Player to target Danielle and do bad things for Dustin and Danielle's game. Yeah, Alex, it was
What the fuck is that?
wild.
Here's an example.
Literally,
of that.
literally, Spec Lounge was like made Dustin. You should have seen. We had like they had
It's
to
funny
choose
that,
do with
like-
veto.
It was like Dustin on the block next to Joe, save Joe. Next to Danielle, save Danielle. It was very nasty.
And that is why Dustin didn't
Wow.
even try to win HOH until Final Four. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say
wild.
that
Because he probably would have had to nominate his closest allies. Like it was that crazy.
Yeah.
So I will say Danielle doing so well with the Spec Lounge actively trying to derail her game is a testament to
I
her
will
strength.
also
Can't
say
really
though
understand.
that alliance and that tight duo that got her to final three together, them getting to final three together, was an out of org relationship that they both were good friends coming into it and found each other.
Mhm.
So I do think that is still socially an advantage because Dustin
Yes.
socially was playing for himself, even if America was controlling his actions.
yeah.
No, that is very correct. So they very quickly caught on to each other's identities and latched onto each other because of that.
that would have been
Not
nice
the first
to
time I
know
mentioned
at
that in
the
this
time,
podcast
but-
either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
I've never done that.
I'll throw a couple things in there. I will say kind of what people talked about not really crossing party lines, and Danielle kind of once the house kind of split and like things got flipped against like Danielle, Dustin, and Amber. Danielle kind of didn't really have anything to do with the other people, and I do think that she would have been the first target of any of them, but they never got the chance because she just like won all the competitions towards the end.
Yeah, our side completely won out from final 9.
So
No, from final 8. From final
So,
8
if
on
I-
every single HOH.
like
so.
you can say if, ands, and buts or whatever, but they literally like basically didn't
Yeah.
to get her out.
Which I think
Yeah,
is another
remember-
reason she's so low is because it was just a steamroll of a season.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I
her,
remember
her and I
correctly-
swapped HOHs to final 4. I think from final 8, Danielle and I just swapped HOHs back and forth. So that
And Danielle's the first of our winners to like win the game with votes against them, because most of our winners have like a 0 record, but Danielle's the first, and for a while only, to have votes against her.
That's right, because
Mhm.
that's kind of another thing I kind of like hold against Danielle is because for all intents and purposes she probably should have gotten like 9th place.
yes, that's what
But-
I was gonna bring.
Yeah,
That I didn't know if we were gonna talk about that.
What
but
was that eviction? What was that?
that was
that
the
was
Jamaica
Jamaica.
versus
That was when
Danielle
Jamaica
eviction.
went home.
And Dustin was supposed to rally votes against Danielle to go home, and he refused to do it and got a strike for it. But we didn't know about it until after the season.
Yeah.
Because they didn't announce it.
Yeah.
Would have been outing him as America's player. But he refused to get Danielle out because he knew who Danielle was and was his IRL friend.
Yeah, so two of her votes are Graham keeping his ride or die and America.
Yeah,
trying
but
to
then
kill
you
him.
can also say like Zach and Carol like had the plan that whole round to like learn what Dustin and Amber wanted to do and do the opposite anyways to like
But they didn't do that. It was weird. It was weird.
it was
but-
weird.
It was a
Whatever.
mess.
She still
Alex,
won.
I'm sure that you will hear all of our opinions on the America's Player twist in the season ranking podcast because we
Yeah.
have
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot.
Coming soon. But yeah,
It's
so
bad.
we'll take that. Danielle, you ate, baby.
But she won,
She
and
won.
he's a slayer.
And also, like, how iconic is having, like we said with Rachel, how iconic is having Danielle Donato as the
Yeah,
winner on
truly.
Big Brother?
And a couple. We
Extremely.
have a showmance kind of
do.
in the winner's circle.
And
No, it's
speaking
iconic.
And
of,
we fixed the thing that happened in in regular Big Brother 8 when Dick beat Danielle.
that's true. That's
and we
true.
righted the ship. You
That's-
know what I mean?
Dick was first boot.
And
Yep.
Dick went first boot.
But yes, speaking of this showmance winner, we actually have a tie for 11th place coming up. But one of those people involved in the tie is indeed winner of Big Brother Rewind 6, Howie Gordon. Woo!
The first
We love
man
you,
on the
Howie.
moon.
We have not one but two people who I guess I technically played with Howie too in All Stars, but
did.
we didn't really get that
Right.
much time. But Sydney and Shinx have a lot more hands-on experience that they can talk about with Howie.
It's true.
I'll go first because
Well, wait, there's 4 minutes left in this one. Just right.
It's
oh, okay.
You're gonna get cut off
Should we-
again, Sydney, if you start
No,
talking.
you can start. It's okay.
Every single time. So one of my favorite Howie moments, and this isn't even related to his game, is when Janelle and her DR was like, I think Howie is like a gay serial killer because he talks like that. This was my first org ever, so I did not understand that people played characters so that other people wouldn't know it was them. So in my DR, I was like, I really like Howie, but I don't understand why he's talking in this like fake accent. It's really
We
weird.
should have called
it
him
really-
Howie.
But in retrospect, like now having a lot more org experience and also now being a host, which is so weird because Jack's not even a host anymore, and Jack is my friend who got me in the org. But I think Howie he was playing against a pretty stacked cast for one.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, in the moment, I did not know that. I did not know anybody, but looking back on it now, I mean, it's a really insane
Season
cast.
6 largely touted as one of the best casts of all time of Big Brother Rewind.
Yeah,
Let's
for
go.
a good reason. I mean, let's fucking go. And I think that having such a stat cast, like he did very well. Like he was not the star, but there were. I mean, I think we can say Janelle was, but there were a lot of stars
Yeah.
that season, and he was also kind of. I think the side versus side part of the game kind of made his win a little bit more just, and because to the point, like he was trying to ride in the middle. And there was a certain point where he should have just committed to his own side. And that kind of hurt him in the end, but obviously not a lot because he still won. And the end game wasn't that interesting because everyone was rooting for Janelle to make it to final 2. And then Janelle fell asleep and didn't show up for like the first 6 hours of part 1, which also she was not winning part 2 in hell. So she had to win part 1 to make it to part
Didn't
3.
she have 3 out of 14?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something ridiculous. And so, of course, she doesn't win the web. So, of course, Howie and Yvette take each other because Howie wins and takes Yvette, obviously,
$25.
because they're partners, right?
Gotta get that
So,
Amazon gift card.
But I will say, once Janelle was out and it was Howie versus Yvette, Howie won unanimously. No one was voting for Yvette. And that's not just because we hated Yvette, though we did. It's also because I personally loved Howie.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he played a very dominating game.
First
lest we
unanimous
bury the lead,
winner,
up until
only
very
perfect winner.
recently, Howie was the most physically dominant winner of any season, and it like wasn't close.
Yes.
I believe we
Yeah,
just
no.
said that Danielle had like a 41%. Howie is like a full step up. Howie was at a 45% win percentage. He played in 20
Which
total
is
competitions,
insane.
and he won 9 of them. So
Howie's
Yeah.
stats off of my brain. First unanimous winner, only perfect game winner still to this day.
literally,
He set the HOH record of 5. I didn't get 5. He's the only one that's had 5. So he has a 5-3 split, and he had the most comp wins period
Yep.
in a single season until my season.
Yeah.
So yeah, he
Yeah.
was stacked,
And
and he
that
did
was
the Califury right after Cody did.
Yeah, that
The
was
real Cody.
fully like season 6 through season 15. Like that was almost 10 whole seasons
Yeah.
of that record staying.
When I broke his record, I pinged him. I was like, I did it. He was so
Yeah.
happy for me.
Yeah.
And what I really like about Howie's game is that he not only was relying on physical competitions, but was working on the social game and having inroads to the other side of the house, where he had this little side thing with Kaser and Janelle, and always made sure that James would be targeted above him. So he had James on the field up until the point where James left, and he and Yvette were then able to trade competitions and really just run away with it at that point in time.
He didn't go up for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If I do have to critique a couple things, I think that earlier on in the season, he had the wrong read on the house where the mac and cheese bites had been fully formed, and he did not realize that and was thinking he was playing more of a middle game, but there was this full side that he was not a part of and he didn't realize. And it's a controversial move. You could say it was a good thing. You could say it was a bad thing. Sydney alluded to it earlier, but he kept Sarah on the other side in the game over April to make sure that James would stay a target over him. And Sarah, as a big threat in the game, ended up winning the next HOH, taking a swing at his side. So it ended up working out for him, but it was definitely a risky, heavily debated move in the moment. And then one other
And it
thing.
pissed me off.
Jeevan and Luke did tell me
Above
to
all
target
things,
Howie.
it
I
pissed
said
Sydney
no.
off. So
They told me to target
That's what
Howie.
most
I said, no, I'm not
important.
doing it.
If I see Matt leave, I will be bitter. And then one last thing, though, in the end game, it was really Yvette who happened to be the one that always had the power to choose who goes home. And despite
That's
them being
true.
a pair, and despite Howie always having this logic of who should go home for a very like rational reason, Yvette would always have her own reason of what would happen, and it would be not what Howie wanted, and it would make no sense, and it would infuriate him. So he ended up not really having control of how the end game played out, even though it still worked out for him.
yeah,
He
that
let
was
people
Yeah.
get away too
definitely a
much.
factor that played into maybe ranking his strategic game in my mind a little bit lower. And something that kind of offset his like crazy, ridiculous physical game was that he did kind of lose a little bit of agency just having like a batshit crazy
To Yvette.
an Yvette. But
To
yeah,
be fair,
still,
Finals
like,
4 he couldn't vote, and Final
Yeah.
5 it tied, so she had the power. He
Exactly.
couldn't. He
Yeah,
literally
so,
couldn't do much.
and he still ended up getting to the end and
Winning.
literally winning unanimously and having the only perfect game in Rewind's history. Like that can't be understated. Like
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
crazy that that's his record, but he's still pretty far down. But
Tied
it
for
makes
11th.
sense why.
It's just how
Oh,
good the
stop.
rest of them
The rest of
are.
our fucking winners are insane.
No, exactly.
Fucking
And it's like
crackheads.
it also shows you that stats, which are a part of it and are important and impressive, aren't the only thing that makes a good winner, obviously.
Come on,
Yeah.
Taylor Hale.
mother.
You know what I mean? But
Mama.
but it is
I
that
did want to like throw in the whole thing about getting James, because when I won the HOH, Jeevan and Luke both, Janelle and Kaser, sorry, both told me that I should target Howie instead, and I was like, fuck no, I'm bitter. He was my partner. I want James.
Yeah.
So if I had listened to
Ashley
them,
deserved it.
the season might end, she did. The season might end differently, but I was petty, and he used that to his advantage, and him saving me directly paid off because
Yep.
those two would have gone after him. I went after James. He went after me.
Absolutely.
Trade,
Mhm.
win. Hats off.
Howie was also
I mean, it worked out perfectly for him.
Yes, it did.
You should always use Strength's pettiness to your benefit if you can.
It's easy. I'm vengeful.
I know it is. Yeah.
Oh, I also something else. I think by and large Howie was like the first like quote unquote like character winner that we had of Big Brother.
Yeah.
And that's so much fun. I do think he kind of dropped it towards the end, but like the whole like Cowboy Howie thing was so ridiculous and so silly. And I absolutely could kind of be seen as almost like the blueprint for some stupid shit that people would do, like later on in the season.
Yes.
And just lying
Krista-
and like
Is
making up
Krista 1.0
personalities
not
for
a
fun.
character?
I was about to say we do have
She
Milf
was the
Krista,
MILF
but
Hunter. Sorry, MILF
Up
Hunter.
to
The
sex
thing is,
people.
that's just Cole.
Yeah.
Is that even a character? That's just his personality. He's
That's very
crazy.
fair. Yeah, that's
he is insane. That's true.
But yes, Cowboy Howie, only perfect game, one of the most dominant physical winners in Big Brother history. They can never take
King.
that away from you.
No.
King.
So yeah, as I said, this was actually a tie for 11th. Both of these people had an average of 11 in it. So they tied in that. So the other person involved in this tie, kind of in the same era, same energy, this pre-All-Stars, era one, we have the winner of Big Brother Rewinds 4, Allison.
Woo!
Yes.
Yay!
So Allison really dominated the start of the season as the head of the Ladies' Night Alliance. It was quite a divide where all the social players were grouped up, and kind of similar to Danielle, I think most of her social capital was in that group. But during Allison's HOH at about the midpoint, June rallied the outsiders. She pulled in G. One of Allison's own allies, Amanda, flipped for that one vote and turned the game on its head. So suddenly, from running the game, Allison was at a 4-3 split with a 3-3 HOH fighting for power. However, just like in Big Brother 8, Allison's alliance then won all the HOHs through the rest of the season. So she would have been a main target and ended up not having to worry. One thing that ended up coming in clutch for her, though, was that she had such a strong ride or die relationship with Dana. And so then Dana had the voting power at both Final Four and Final Three and kept Allison both times, even though it was such a clearly wrong move, especially at Final Three, where you have Amanda, who is just a pure character, a
Queen.
ball of light, but has no game really.
Yep.
Compared to Allison, who has been your like lockstep strategic duo. And she took Allison and she paid for it by losing in the jury vote.
Absolutely. That comparison that you just made to Big Brother 8 is actually kind of crazy because it's very accurate, because it's like that early jury like power structure flip that was like with June and Michelle, and then with like Joe and Jamaica, and like them kind of being on the ropes, but then that alliance ultimately like prevailing and getting to the end. So that's actually very cool.
I saw that, and in my rankings, I had Howie over Allison just because I thought Allison and Danielle's games. I realized that here had so many parallels, and I think like throughout history in the moment, Allison stood out as such a big player compared to her cast that she maybe was a little bit higher in my rankings in the past. But then when I actually broke it down and like looked at the nitty gritty here, this is where I landed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also, I think if I did my own personal rankings, I would also have Howie above Allison, but again, that's just kind of
I in my own personal ones, it wasn't by like much. Like I think it was literally
It is
like
a tie after
one
all,
spot
so.
higher, but
Yeah.
I did have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from, like we talked about, Howie having his like he does have a little still bit of a leg up on the
Huge boost in his ranking overall just from his physical game alone.
well also but
Mhm.
but his like out of all these players that I kind of group together, like Howie, like Danielle, like Chelsea, like a lot of those type of like winner players that have some pretty good physical games. I don't know if Chelsea had a great physical game, but I kind of put her in
She
that
did 13, but
yeah.
we won't be talking about that. Okay.
But and Allison, like those type of players, Howie did have a little bit more just because of he played the only perfect game in BB Rewind's history, right? So I feel like that gives him a little bit of a boost, at least in my like ranking situation. But this is the Allison section, so
And I will say the first season of Big Brother Rewinds, I caught the tail end of Rewinds 4. So I have a special place in my heart for like Jose, Amanda, and Troy and
On
Dana.
the flip side, for me, season 4 is the one where I was the most checked out because COVID, back at school type thing. So I barely remember any of this. But
Yeah.
I do remember Troy was the first winner. It was season 3, so it's not really that big, but like the first winner. It's the one of the only few who was taken to the end and still won. Most of the
Damn.
final eight were just going to win.
Yeah.
And then he was different. And yeah, good for Troy.
And also, I've already said it a couple times, but I'll say it again. How fucking iconic is it that Allison Irwin is a winner of Big Brother Rewinds?
And I do think, speaking of characters and winners playing with these personas under the alt accounts, Troy definitely had like a little bit of a girly pop diva persona for Allison. Was
Didn't
on
he make her a Tinder?
showing
Yeah.
the guys he was swiping on as a straight man.
And
So that was
that's
fun
really
and like
funny given that it was Troy. So
yes.
Literally catfishing Allison Irwin. Like
that's amazing.
So the specs were fed.
As they should. Allison, you'll always be iconic.
it's true.
Mother. someone brought up this very person a second ago, but moving on to our number 10 winner is indeed the winner of Big Brother Rewinds 9, Chelsea Hart.
Delete.
Hurricane Halcia, everybody.
Yay.
Woo!
Woo.
Give it
That
up for
bomb strikes fear to my
Chelsea.
heart.
We do have someone on the panel that is rather intimate with all that is Halcia Hart. So Swan, would you like to give
Who's
us some
someone?
insight into this particular winner?
I was
Actually,
only
we have
briefly.
two. I forget
I
Graham
will
played.
say,
Graham played two.
Three.
Alex,
Three.
And
yeah,
Alex.
3. And
But
the
specifically
two of them
the winning game.
actually, the two of them actually played with her longer than I did. At least in this iteration.
But you played in the winning season.
I was just gonna say, but you had the
Exactly.
winning game, so
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah. I
Jackson
can
for
speak
getting
the
Alex
most
the
to
third
at
time
least
tonight.
part
That's
of this
crazy.
game.
I forgot you, Graham.
What can I say? Anyway, Swan. Yeah.
I will say, like, I think she gets kind of dunked on as a winner sometimes because of Jen being such a dominating persona on the season. One thing that we've talked about as we were like kind of making our rankings as well is that the twist of the season was a secret duo built into the cast, two people who knew their identities and that hosts allowed to VC each other, which I think that is probably I don't think that was the wisest decision, but because it just makes the advantage even more insane.
Yeah.
However,
Just valid.
I still think Chelsea played a great game. Chelsea, like part of the reason Sheila was so bitter when Sheila got evicted is because I had made inroads with these people. I had alliances. I had really deep relationships with a lot of them, and Chelsea was one of them. Chelsea was one of the people I felt most betrayed by. In fact, to the extent where on my way out, I was like, "Well, Chelsea has to have the secret relationship with one of these two other girls on the block because why else would she be targeting me? She and I are so close. This is crazy." Like I think Chelsea was like 3 or 4 on my trust ranking. So she had a great social game. I will say I've played with Edvin elsewhere, and Edvin has played better games than he did as Chelsea here, and won. But I can't remember, was Chelsea pretty dominant in competitions? Because
No.
Edvin I know is really
Honestly,
good in comps.
No,
It was mostly Jen,
Chelsea
which
So
is
that's
crazy.
interesting.
Chelsea is on the lower end of the
That's fascinating because
percentages.
Edvin's almost unstoppable in comps
Yeah,
these days, you know.
Chelsea
She ate
played
up
in
13.
17 competitions across season 9 and she won 4 of them. So she had about a 23,
Yeah.
24%
I
chance.
do think
Yeah.
I do want to add though, I think overall, when I put casts into perspective, and we can talk way more about this when we get into like season rankings, but I do think season 9 is probably one of our strongest casts competitively, at least physical wise. Well, because you have
I think
Sheila and
I
Sharon.
think it's very top heavy.
You have Jacob and Ryan.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have Chelsea and Joshua. Like you have a whole bunch of
Oh, you mean
Jen
like
nabbed some
you mean like
comps.
literally like how well people
Like
He's
the
just talking
comps.
competition.
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
There was a
No,
lot
I
of
don't-
bouncing around.
No, yeah, no, I don't mean overall like
That's
as
actually
players.
Okay, I would
But
agree.
I mean in terms of like people who are physical threats that win competitions.
That's true.
It is one of the strongest casts of like there are a lot of physical threats, quote unquote. I mean, as physical threat you can be on Discord, but and for this sake, there are a lot of physical threats in BB Rewinds 9. We had a lot of that go. I mean, that's literally half the reason Sheila and Sharon went out. Not even half. That's most of the reason Sheila and Sharon went out in the first place. It's because they won a bajillion comps like back to back to
Well,
back.
and I do want to bring up an actually interesting point. Speaking of like me going out, but it was a very limiting twist. It was one of the most difficult twists in Big Brother history to navigate around. So point A I was going to make is that it's really impressive that I don't even know if Jen and Chelsea had touched the block during the pair
didn't.
phase of the game.
I don't believe
So
so.
I think that's really
They
impressive
didn't.
because there's just such limited options on who to nominate, who to put up, especially if vetoes used, especially if vetoes used by a third party. It's just a really hellish twist. That
For
really.
her,
But however, then my second point, I guess, is more of a question for the group. Do we think, since she was paired with Jen, that Jen carried that duo socially a little bit?
I think that it was a very fortunate draw for her, but I do not think she was carried. I think
Yeah,
together
I would agree with
they
that.
were
She did her
very
own, enough on her own.
they were very dynamic together, and it's very clear that Chelsea had inherent advantages. So I struggled to weigh that because she used those advantages very well. You know, I felt like if she ever was nominated, she had the votes. She had the nice girls trusting her. She got to choose when to discard certain allies that had her trust. And with her duo with Joshua, she was the one that wore the pants. You know, there were multiple times where
That's true.
Joshua wanted
Yeah.
to go a different way. Like, she steered Josh to get Jacob out, and she pushed for Natalie to leave over Amanda, and he disagreed, and she sat down and said, "We're doing this," and got her way. So what she wanted went. And for me, she was very secure, always in the driver's seat. So I had her ranked actually a couple places higher than this just because I felt like she fit more this tier of winners who controlled the game. But I do take it that earlier on in the game, there was plenty of inactive players to make at least a couple of easy weeks with the pairs twist. And then on top of that, she did have, you know, a fortunate pairing with Jen and the twist working in her favor.
Yeah.
She did also. Oh, go ahead, Jackson.
In my mind, it is very similar to like what we talked about with Danielle, with kind of, albeit I think Danielle was more disadvantaged by the America's player twist as a whole, but whether intentional or not, that like outside relationship that she had with Dustin, I think is very similar to the kind of outside relationship that Chelsea and Joshua had coming into the game. So I think it could be, I think I kind of normally see Chelsea and Danielle as far as like their winning games go kind of comparably. But I feel like because Chelsea is like nominated and on the block as late in the game at final 5, and she still like stays around like rather handily.
No votes.
Yeah. And
I think that the main difference to me is that the house splits for Danielle, and Danielle's in real danger with certain HOHs.
Sure.
While Chelsea may be nominated a couple times, she's never in real danger. And I think like the real power of the house is still in her corner throughout it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Like-
Another thing in her favor is she was literally taken to final 2, and it's not like Joshua, who was cut at 3, was like this big unstoppable 100% guaranteed to win force. You know what I mean? So it's not like she was dragged to final 2 like because we had to get rid of this big power player. Like she actively got like chosen by her partner, given it was her like assigned game partner, like that she'd worked with the whole season. But still, it was really impressive that she could have easily, like Jen could have easily cut her and maybe had a better chance at winning herself against Joshua, and Chelsea got brought instead out of loyalty, social game, whatever, you know.
Very
I was gonna say
Allison that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That like especially early era rewinds is like very duo heavy, especially like these assigned duos, like how we need that war pair in the game, like literally designed as a pair. They made it to the end. Now Chelsea gets her pre-game pair and her side pair in final 3, and she was guaranteed final 2 like that. I mean, yeah, it's a little top heavy with the whole pre-game partner thing, but the fact that she was able to even have Jen thinking that Joshua was a bigger threat when on paper he wasn't.
Yeah.
From our perspective, he definitely wasn't, I felt like.
Yeah, definitely not from us, but in the game, Jen genuinely believed Joshua was a bigger threat. And then when he dropped that bomb, that he was like, with a secret pair, Jen was shitting her pants. She was like, I fucking lost. And it's like, props to Edmund for even making Jen. I mean, he tricked Arya. Like the fact that he tricked Arya is like,
and the fact that he outright beat Arya like at the final 2.
The America's jury vote didn't matter. He won regardless of America.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that can't be understated in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah. Does anyone else have any last minute things about Chelsea?
Just that her and Cody are tied for at least, whether or not you count their final HOH wins or not, they're both tied for the least comp wins and least HOH wins, and they still won. So
it is a little
that is
different
wild to me,
percentage-wise,
having seen like Edvin's comp wins in like 13, hearing that he was so shit in this season. I'm like,
I don't even think it was shit. I think everyone was just pretty good.
We were just like shaking so bad about like, I had no business. You guys like keep talking about how I had no business winning that HOH that I did that blew up my game. And that's because I didn't trust my allies to actually fucking win something. And I didn't realize that like Chelsea was just gonna DQ or something. Like I was so scared of that bomb.
She did
I
win
swear
3
to
of 3
God.
in that season, so
I think
Her,
not. I
her
think
and Joshua just kept trading off HOHs.
Yeah.
It was so annoying.
literally. I think Rewind's 9 kind of almost gets like lost in the mix a lot of the time with
Because I
these other
intentionally bury
seasons.
it.
Yeah, it's like it's not like the highs of Big Brother Rewinds by any means, but it's definitely not like the low complete bottoms of it. So I think it gets kind of murky sometimes. But like I think that alone in itself, when Chelsea and Joshua come back for 13 and they're so dominant in challenges, um, and I don't think some like massive thing changed in between those 2 seasons. I think it was about the same ability that they
about
had.
like a year apart. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a testament to like as like Graham and Swan were saying, like the physical capability of that cast. And also season 9 is one of the seasons that have had the most like returnees in it. It's at like 6 or 7 returnees at this point. So that's also kind of just a testament to, if not maybe
Because
all
everybody
that
else in the
happened.
cast sucked.
Yeah, that's
like
maybe
inactive flops.
yeah, something that maybe
And he who must not be named.
has like lost potential because of what happened on that season. Maybe not so much the things that physically did happen on that exact season, but the potential of what could have been in a lot of those players. So I think 9 kind of gets slept on. I think it was
I agree.
And that's a good preview for the seasons podcast that's coming up when we're ranking all the seasons.
That's true. But yes, with all that, let's get into single dig, baby.
Single dig.
Single dig.
Ooh.
Our number 9
Shocker.
spot we mentioned earlier, and if you know anything about Big Brother Rewinds, you probably know that Cole, aka Nucleo, is a player that has won not once, not twice, but 3 times across our 15 seasons.
Our only straight male winner has won 3 times.
I
Straight
know,
white man.
our only straight
We
white
have
male
one
winner.
and we have 3 at the same time.
Wait, what was that
So-
confession, Shinx?
Our only straight
only
white
straight male winner?
Straight
Wow. Oh my god, we have an
What?
exclusive coming out on the podcast. That's
Oh my god.
Got
I'm
it
so happy
out.
for
Three,
Shinx.
3 days late. But
Oh my
we're-
god, happy Pride Shinx.
Straight white male is
Thank
what I meant to say.
And so, of course, the only straight white male that we have winner, of course, is like the most decorated one in the series. So here we are.
Mhm.
Yes, one of Cole's, just ridiculous even saying it. One of Cole's 3 winning games across this season or across the series is indeed in the number 9 spot, and we have his most recent appearance in Big Brother Rewinds 14 as Coach Krista. Woo!
Do we have to cheer for Cole every time?
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm gonna cheer
Oh,
for him.
again.
Also, I'm
You
just
guys are
I'm just going on the
haters.
record. I think Chelsea should be higher than Krista 14, but
I don't agree.
I mean,
I
I'd say
don't
that
do the
Chelsea
whole
in
list.
multiple places higher, but
I don't remember where did I put Krista? I put Krista.
I just think-
I
think
put
Chelsea
Krista
above
at
Krista
9
as well.
actually, so this works out for me.
I just
So this
I
is
just
your
think
fault.
the fact that
Yeah.
Krista won, having the stigma of being a 2-time winner.
Yeah, it
is
wasn't a
insane
secret
in
like
itself.
in 7. Yeah.
I
No,
agree.
it was.
I agree. I think that stat though, that fact is more interesting than her game for the most part.
Oh,
I-
and I mean, I agree with you, but I just think that alone
Yeah,
has
It's
to
true.
elevate her game. Yeah.
Swan, you
Yeah.
ate with that.
but
so
I
bad.
agree. I agree, and that's why I had her like low middle rather than just like low. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah,
we did
I-
get chocolate starfish out of 14.
Oh,
so
no,
What
no,
do I
no,
mean
no,
with
that
chocolate
was-
starfish?
Still
Yeah.
lives rent
Please.
free.
I just ate chocolate. Don't do this to me.
with that chocolate starfish.
There's so
Yeah.
much to talk about for
Happy Pride Shinx.
oh my god, Pride is over. There's so much to talk about for Rewinds 14. Just genuinely one of the best seasons we've
Oh
ever
my god.
just on sheer entertainment
crackheads.
value.
Unhinged cast.
So
Unhinged
good.
And
cast.
sheer crackheadery, and the fact that the like cherry on top of all of it is that Cole becomes a 3-time winner in it is honestly it's kind of perfect for the season. Like
It is.
I
was.
wouldn't have it any other way.
For
But-
me,
Yeah.
his game was just about how can I scrape through one more round.
Yeah.
He was
Uh-huh.
actively trying to make enemies and piss people off. That would be more comfortable sitting by him in the end. Like,
Yes.
it's just like I have to do whatever I can to get by. And yes, he did have the early first 3 cycles or so of being a coach and not having to be worrying about being vulnerable. But I think the 2-time winner title publicly balances that out. And then from that point on, he grabs the immunity in the pressure cooker. And then he basically recognizes, like, all right, who are the allies that are going to be able to take me through this game? And he sees one of them is Joe. So when it's April versus Shane and he likes April better and he wants to vote Shane out, but he really needs to invest in Joe for that to pay off down the line, he sides with Joe and gets rid of April. And it does pay off. And then when he loses a number in Janelle,
dump.
which is brutal as one of his only few like core allies, which that was just a tragedy. I don't like to think
Ah.
Janelle's exit that season.
I don't want to think about it.
There's no humor this
The,
time.
the only stain on the season.
Truly.
Yeah.
But then he had put in some work with JoJo and votes against JoJo, yet has her trust the next cycle, and she wins HOH and is in his corner, and he uses that alliance to get through. And later on in the season has Danielle coming back to him. So he has these enemies and he just pulls people in at the right time to get through the right cycle. And yes, there is 1 or 2 competition wins that also pull him through. I believe like Final 5 and Final 3, he probably needs those competition wins if that's where he had them.
Not Final 4 though.
But
Yeah.
Final 4,
Not
he's
4.
vulnerable, and Danielle saves him because she is like, all right, if I keep Krista in the game, then I'm more likely to get through to Final 2. And she did.
He went out from
at
7 except 4. So he was 7, 6, 5, 3.
I think my favorite part about Krista 14, and this was a season I got really invested in because I was actually originally, again, Insider Baseball, I was originally the alternate for this season, just in case one of the coaches had to drop. So I was like really invested in this season. But what was cool about it was one of the few times we got to see Cole scrap
That's
and
true.
play from the bottom. We have never seen Cole fight for his life every single week. And it was so interesting to see him have to do this and, like Jack said, like make amends with people that he'd pissed off and think of crazy, I mean psycho strategies of let me piss people off, that way they'll be happy to sit next to the inn next to me. Like, who thinks about that? Like it's
Wasn't he fucking lying in his confessional too? To
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For no
Unhinged
reason.
behavior.
There was no
Unhinged
Because
audio.
behavior.
we
He
wanted
lied
to
to
make it
lie.
like
He does
suspenseful
that.
for Specs.
Yeah, he claimed he was
lied
going to
to
use
lie.
the veto on someone, then used it on the opposite person.
The one
He didn't even.
I
He didn't
just
update
was
his
so
subs.
confused.
He
Like,
didn't update his subs. I was at a loss. We didn't get subs. Like, what's happening? He would not tell me. I was lost. He blindsided me. Like, that's absurd.
And I think that's iconic.
I
It
will say
is.
part of the
So
reason
iconic.
part of the reason his game is lower for me is because I mean it worked, so it's like whatever. But his strategy was like, let me just like not be as social and whatever, so I won't be seen as too big of a threat because I already have this label. And it did work. It's just not an exciting strategy. But I will say like part of it was also like he had limited time with work and stuff and couldn't commit to as
Yes,
much
he was
as
like
he
very
wanted to. But
busy.
he made the most of whenever he was online. And I think that's really impressive.
Yeah.
And I did want to just note that just because it is a distinct difference in Cole's game, because we're going to talk about 2 more of these fucking things later.
Yeah.
So, so I did want to come in and note about that this was probably one of the only times. I mean, there are other times in his games where, I mean, something goes wrong and you have to like scrap out of it. But this was like the one time that he was just playing from the bottom basically the entire time. But again, because of that, there are inherently things that are bad about his game because he is in the bottom the entire time. Like he is going week to week, like I said, scrapping. So while it's impressive, it's that old adage of like, what's more impressive? Is it more impressive to make it through a game of Big Brother and not be in trouble, like literally at all? Or is it more impressive to be in a bunch of trouble and make it out of the trouble? Right. It's a lot about like what you kind of view.
That's why I love his 7 game, because it's both.
Yeah, right.
It is.
It's like the mesh of it.
It's the most beautiful mesh, but that's for later. But I just did want to bring that up to.
And one other point that does need to be said is he is the only coach who chose not to enter the game, and part of that reason was he legitimately did not think he could win as a house guest.
Here we are. He didn't want to tarnish his record, but he just made it better.
But here we are.
Even more fucking crazy.
They forced his hand. He was like, "You want me to play? I guess I'll play. Y'all did it to yourselves."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to throw in a few things about this game too. When I was doing my win percentages, this Krista in 14 actually was a lot higher than I thought. Like I don't necessarily think like physical dominant game when I think of this game or this season for Krista.
Well, because they had the coaches competitions, and G-Ven was
yeah.
one of his competitors.
That is true. But that's
Riley's
very
throwing
fair.
a stray at G-Ven for no reason.
That's
Sorry,
very
continue.
fair.
That's like the third one tonight.
Yeah. We're one of our other off-season podcasts is going to be 20 moments of just bashing on Jeevan.
Oh my lord.
We'll have our top 20 favorite and
I'll be hosting.
our top 20 favorite and our top 20 flop moments of Jeevan. But yeah, so Krista actually she competes in 20 separate competitions across this season and she wins 7 of them. So she has a 35% win chance in this, which was higher than I expected it to be. And it's the number 6, like it's right out of the top 5 of the win percentages. And also something crazy when we were going through this and I was looking, I believe there was a total of 12, I think, or maybe not even 12. It was like
It's kind
one.
of thrown off because of the Frank thing.
Yeah, and because of the coaches and everything. But the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's technically 8 total rounds in which Krista like played the game as like a full-fledged house guest. And she was only eligible to be eliminated in 3 of them. So across
one
the
of them
whole
was a
season,
quiz, so.
there's only 3 opportunities in which she's even able to be taken out. And one of them being even as late as the final 4. And it's Danielle who's making the decision to do it. And he still manages to get away with it and go in. So I think that's crazy. So anyone else have any last thoughts about Krista 14?
We have plenty of time to talk about Nucleo in the future.
Yeah, we can.
That's true. That motherfucker's
We are
taking
pacing
1/5
ourselves.
of these slots.
Just
So
another note about the season.
Yeah.
Iconic, never been done before, amazing.
Yeah.
Every person on that cast was psychotic,
Yeah.
insane, neurotic, need to be institutionalized, and I loved every minute of that season.
Absolutely.
That's all I wanted to
So
say.
good. So
Yep.
good.
He's a
Okay,
real
so that was one of the 3 spots that Nucleo is going to inhabit on this list, taking up a full 5th of this winner ranking.
Ridiculous.
We go from season 14 to another very recent season. In fact, the most recent season. In our number 8 spot, we do indeed have the winner of Big Brother Rewind 16, Cody Calafiore.
Ooh, gay villain.
We love a demon twink.
We love an evil.
Yes.
We do.
Yes. This season is still so fresh in my mind, and I still have so many notes on it just generally, but
I still have nightmares about it.
yeah.
Oh Jesus.
I will say I think Cody, at least in my ranking, was kind of tanked a little bit because he is statistically the worst winner as far as competition wins go.
I don't care about physical game all too much, though. You know what I mean?
No, I
He
really
threw
don't.
competitions the whole time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he made key decisions that
Absolutely.
won him the game without those competitions.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really that thing of when he did come into power, and he really did use
He
it
used
very
the
correctly.
best, yeah.
But yeah, he by the end of it, also it's kind of inflated with Battle of the Block and everything, but I didn't count like Battle of the Blocks he didn't play in. But whatever. He competed in a total of 26 competitions across the season, and he won 5 of them.
Oh my god.
2 HOHs, 2
Okay.
Amigos, and a Battle of the Block. So that's
A battle of the block that was thrown to him.
yeah.
King.
They would
Right
have
under-
won if they
brag about
didn't
it
right
to
go.
under
everybody.
20%. He comes in at a 19.23%.
That's still not bad.
No, that's not bad at all.
Considered. You know,
Could be Jeevan.
2 vetoes.
Oh
if
my
you
god.
have all the Battle of the Blocks that kind of inflates it. That would be kind of
Well, he only competed in 1, so it'd only make it 25.
never mind.
But-
That sucks. No, I'm kidding.
Could be
Yes.
Jeevan.
I will say
For me,
offset
the-
that kind of
Oh, go ahead.
like the thesis statement of why Cody won is because he didn't need to win competitions.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
you have this giant, one of the most dominant. I didn't actually. Well, I think I did do a win percentage at some point, but Nicole was like
did.
over 50%, I think, in competition
I
wins
believe it.
Yeah.
that she
that
competed
makes
in.
sense.
So you
She
have
like won a bunch and barely got dethroned. Yeah.
yeah, she you have this massive, like one of the biggest physical players that this series has ever seen. Albeit, I don't think that was the strong suit of her game, but also Cody came to the end and kind of like took apart Nicole's game for a lot of it. So I think
Yeah.
the combination of Cody being even though however much of like a mean gay he was in his confessional, was really positively social with a lot of people in the
Oh
house.
yeah.
Like we talked about, whenever he did have power, I think he like objectively made the correct strategic decision at basically every turn.
Mhm.
And all of that showed, like getting to the end, he wins kind of in a very similar to like Chelsea situation. And I do think Cody and Chelsea do kind of have very comparable
They have
games.
such a bunch of strange parallels. Like
Yeah.
it's weirdly.
Yeah.
We talked about this during 16, I think,
Yeah,
or like after.
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Chelsea, Cody, of course, is taken to the end by Nicole over Amber. Chelsea was taken to the end with Jen over Joshua.
America votes for their opponent.
America like literally
Decided
inflates
by
the
one
other
vote.
person's jury votes, and they still win by one vote. There's a lot of parallels.
Same
with
number of
that.
comp wins.
Yeah, same number of comp wins. Like there's a lot of weird parallels with that. But
Both are demon twinks. I said complimentary. I say that with love.
And yes, and but I genuinely do think something that boosted Cody up higher in my list, despite him being like rock bottom for the competitions, is that in my mind, and it could very well be like recency bias, but he's one of the most entertaining winners that we've ever had. So
Oh, he's so fun.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was such a like so fun to watch in his DR, even when he was being a little shit. But that was like half the fun anyway.
absolutely, yeah.
And
For me, the
Go
biggest
ahead.
reason he's not like higher up for me is because it was largely viewed that like Nicole should have won this season. So I do take him down like that was why he was mid in my personal list rather than like in the top tier. But we did talk about during that season, during the finale, that it was actually the strongest final three that Big Brother Rewinds had ever had, and we would have been happy with any three of those winners. So while a lot of us believed that Nicole had played the best game, and the jury just didn't see that, at the end of the day, we're still happy with Cody winning. And at the end of the day, the jury are the ones who decide the winner, not us, and they chose Cody. So like he fucking
And
won.
also,
Good
at the
for
end of the
fucking
day,
him.
it's her job to sell her game, and she did not do that, and he sold
Yep.
the shit out of his game.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
Smacked her in the
he ate
face.
that
He
questioning
ate
up.
her up.
He did
has
it.
one
He
of
did
the-
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
I
was
think
in
he-
mourning the entire time, but he ate her up.
And I
Hanks
do think
disagrees with this, but I do think he has one of the best final two just performances in
Yeah.
Video Games history.
I would agree.
Oh, I
Shinx
would not
disagrees
agree
with
with
it for
that.
some reason, and I don't know
You
why.
did need to mention
but-
that. I think they were both not the greatest, but that's not the point. He still won, so who cares?
At least in comparison, it looked like one of the greatest.
Yeah,
But
Yes.
100%.
For
Yeah.
me, he's in this tier with Krista on 14 of a player who's defined by threat management and not being a target, because he was throwing competitions throughout the game. And a key pivotal round for him was on his HOH when he was twist fucked by Battle of the Block to have to nominate either Jocasta or Nicole, his two most key allies. And he turned on Jocasta, who he had the closer relationship with, for Nicole, who was the bigger shield for him. And by doing so, he was never really the target whenever there was a power shift. He was protected by Nicole at multiple pivots in the game. And although it was his goal to take out Nicole and he failed to do that and thought he would lose the game, you know, he didn't. He was able to sell his game. He was able to convince the jury of why his social positioning in the game paid off. So I give him major props for that. And another moment that I just love from his game is when he's in danger early on and convinces Derek to get nominated for him.
Yeah.
On the other
Convinces,
Oh
harasses
god,
an
that was
alliance
amazing.
chat. Harasses an alliance chat.
Listen,
And then after he gets that
harasses,
competition thrown to
begs,
him, he brags about it to the entire house. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
that was funny.
you
gets
can
Derek,
talk
his
about
close ally,
you can talk
nominated.
about the morality of it however much you want to, but it worked out for him. So
It kept him safe. He got Derek nominated.
Yep.
Derek threw
Oh,
the Battle of
yeah.
the Block, and then the vote flipped on Derek, and he went along with the house to vote Derek out. It is iconic to me, and it got him through the round.
no, I agree.
It's
I will
extremely
say,
iconic.
I will say this could be recency bias, and also I don't know this list. I'm just speaking out my ass, but don't ask me to back it up. But in my mind, him getting Jocasta evicted over Nicole feels like one of the biggest, like maybe top 5 moves in BBR history. Like it is
Yes.
a really huge move. Because like he had figured out that Jocasta was his like outside of the org, like BFF kind of thing. Like they had a pre-connection that they realized in the game. Like, and also they were just the closest to each other naturally in the game. Like he sent out his number one in order to keep a shield and in order to keep somebody that not only was a shield but would win competitions to keep them safe. And I think that was his game-winning move right there.
I think so too. Yeah, 100%.
And he tricked Nicole
And-
at Final 3, where he was like, "I would have taken you," and then speeches, he's like, "Haha, I was cutting
That
up."
was
yeah,
iconic. Yeah.
that was funny.
That we need to talk about that too. Yeah, Cody literally until after Nicole posted her speech and after Cody's posted his speech did not kept up this charade with Nicole that Cody would have taken Nicole to the final 2, and it's not until Jerry mentioning that Cody like lets the pin drop and like kind of lets Nicole have it with it.
I do want to go back to what Swamp was talking about really quickly, because it's actually not even just, because I know exactly, it wasn't even just the final 8 round. It's also the final 9 round, because I remember talking about it about it at the ass on the podcast when we were doing it, because it was so impressive to me. Because not only did Cody win this HOH when he needed to at final 8, but he had the foresight at final 9 to know what was coming. Because I distinctly remember him being like, okay, I could win this final 9 HOH, or I could throw it to Jocasta, because I'm worried that if I don't win final 8 HOH in particular, that I'm going to get twisted
Yep.
for the very last round of this Battle of the
Mhm.
Block.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm getting to this next round, I'm throwing to Jocasta, I'm letting
That's
her
true.
take this, and then
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
remember
make
that.
myself safe. That way I'm safe from the twist fuck whenever final 8 happens.
Yep.
Yep.
And he does that. And so to me, it's like a combination of having the foresight and strategy to know what's coming and to prepare for that. And then also on top of having the foresight for that plan to actually work in his favor, to be a move that literally gets him to the end of the game.
Yeah, that's like a
Um,
2-round move right there.
It literally, it
Yeah.
is, it's
I
one of the
hadn't thought
most,
about that aspect of it. Yeah.
it's one of the most impressive things I've literally ever seen in Big Brother Rewind's history.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
I know we don't have the stats, and it would be fun. I mean, we're throwing out pod ideas, but it would be fun to do like a best moments or best
Oh yeah.
like
That
a
would be
top
fun.
Yeah.
best moves or best moments in Big Brother Rewind's history would be really fun to like do like a look back on it. But it would be up there for me. It would be like top 5 for sure.
Absolutely.
It's so good. And I think that's like the magnum opus of his game. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, he talks about it in his jury questioning. It's like what gets him to the end. Like it really, Cody kind of lives or dies by this like 2-cycle pivot that happens in the middle of
Well,
the.
I feel like his game was really summed up with social strategic. You know, like there's some people who are just social to be social. Like they're really nice, they're really sweet. He really used his social game for strategy. And you can see that in that, 2-round move.
We have a lot of social strategic winners in BB Rewind's history.
Well, yeah,
But they also get the comps. He didn't.
That's true. That is true. He was mainly just social strategic. So, but he ate.
He did.
Plus 8.
Same. He did. He ate. He was
He
number.
ate.
He was number 8.
Oh no.
Just
I said 8 plus 8 because 16, but that works too.
Oh yeah, I mean that too. But yeah, so we just talked about Krista 14, Cody 16. It's only right that we talk about season 15 and number 7. We have the winner of Big Brother Rewind's 15 second chances, Shinx. Woo!
Wow.
Yeah.
Boo, tomato,
Eat
tomato.
my ass.
What a hater. I mean, we have the man on the panel right now. So, Shinx, if you had to sum up, I know this might be a little difficult for you, but if you had to sum up your game in like a paragraph, what would you say?
I think Sydney said this best when I was back reading, and I wasn't supposed to, that there was a portion of the game where people are. I'm like, you don't need to try to win in pre-jury. You need to try to make jury, and then when you're in jury, you try to make Funnel 5 and then Funnel 5 win. And she basically said, which I do resonate with in all my orgs, that there's a point in the game where I'm trying not to lose. And then when the end is actually like in sight, you don't need to plan Final 2, Final 16. Once the end is actually in sight, then you start thinking, okay, we're here. This is the field. How do I put the deck in my favor? And so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Did that work out for me? Not really, but I tried. And when that failed,
Did you
You
won?
won. What do
I mean, you
Did
won.
you
You
really
literally
Literally
won.
won.
but I have to go to my backup plan. I didn't like my backup
That's
plan.
true.
And
I think Shinx, I think that's a great summation of it, because I think a lot of
yes.
people seem to kind of lose sight of that, where it's like, especially in those early days and like not like literally in the pre-jury, you cannot win the game of Big Brother in the pre-jury, but you can most definitely lose it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
As
Yeah.
his biggest competition of the season, Miss Isabel / Alex, how do you view the winner of that season?
yes.
I think Shanks ate up, and I think that he is a
Then
little
why
too
didn't you
down
vote
on
for him?
himself
Oh,
because
God.
Damn.
I am a loyal bitch. Okay.
Easy Swan.
Also, no, not gonna lie. I think that Sombra's game was massively underrated by that jury,
Agree.
but she also burnt the fuck out of that jury, and her jury management was shit.
See?
Which is just like that was
That's not even
alarming.
tea. That's
When I
just-
got into that jury, like seeing their view of her game was shocking to me, just because I had seen it so up close, and I knew how much of like what was seen as my game was also hers. You know,
I did think I was losing
like
for 90% of Final 2, whatever.
which
I
I
thought I
feel
was
like all
losing for
people
most of
do.
it.
No one ever thinks they're winning in Final Two.
It's true.
Yeah.
to be fair, I was also like a massive bitch to you on my way out, and really just like completely torpedoed your confidence.
It's true.
We're basically like, have fun getting
God,
second,
his
blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. No,
Yeah.
that's true.
God, I was
That's
such a
what happens.
cunt. I'm sorry
But it's
about that.
okay.
No, but yeah, you really did. It was so funny too with the Q&A where like you getting into a fight with me actually made the jury like you more, because they were like, ooh, some fight, some spice, we'd love to see it. So that is something that like I feel like 90% of the time a finalist fighting with a juror is just a bad look, and
Yeah.
for you
I
it
didn't
was
want
the
to fight. I
opposite.
just lost the plot. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well,
I
I
feel like
say something that I think relates to that though is Shinx, like you were talking about, a lot of the beginning half of the game, you were playing very safe and you were playing very
Mm.
you were playing not to lose.
One might say you weren't wearing your vote.
No, we're not getting into this.
Where your
Okay, but
vote?
actually, as much as I give him shit about that, him not wearing his vote and being that kind of like centrist position really allowed the pastas to have the insight into the other side of the
Yeah.
house that we wouldn't have had otherwise. Like,
Yeah.
I-
No, but
I
that's
give him a lot of shit about Doom and everything, but like him doing what he did, I would not have been able to have like the insight I personally did. If I had no fucking clue what Erin was doing. I had no
No,
relationship with
absolutely.
her.
Yeah.
And then
You know,
there's
like-
Jake leaking things to Aaron and her immediate mess.
Anyway.
So for playing a safer game earlier on, and that definitely came in handy when he was on the block because he was being nominated by America a couple of times.
Mhm.
Very fun memories we all had. Thanks, Keaton.
Thanks.
But I do think that early game is really impressive, especially just from the alliance standpoint in general, where you have your core crew, but you also have connections to like Aaron and Sunflower, so that way when they're in power and your side isn't, you're fine, even though you just won like 3 competitions in 2 weeks. Like, who cares? You're good. But then your side's able to rally and flip the game and take control of the game, and then just start knocking out these people one by one by one. And in that phase, you're still like at this point, having won so many competitions early on, you're throwing competitions, you're laying back, and you have multiple people kind of banking on you, like as a vote for when things come down the line. You have Clementine in your ear, you have Isabel in your ear. So I think through that whole first part of the game, you're in a really good spot, and you have Tiny Kong as this shield, which is so crucial.
Mhm.
And when Tiny Kong goes, that's when your competition threat is taken out and you're able to win those endgame competitions. So like it's that perfect time where just like how he lost James and then comped out, you lose Tiny and then can comp out. In terms of some of the things that lowered you a bit in my rankings, I would say having to play more of that safe, secure game in the jury phase, let the power shift from the pastas to this new alliance, the Rocks, the Rock and Roll. I forget what it's called exactly, but the
Rock and
Isabel
roll play.
Rock
Rock
and
and
roll
Roll play,
play.
Isabel, Sombra, Bandana, Pikmin faction that formed, and they kind of take control of the game. And then that ends up leading to you being in this like must win situation towards the end. While I think like if things played out a little more ideally, that probably looks like Clementine sticking around longer and you being able to do some more stuff with her. But like it still worked out so great where your shield gets taken out and so does your competition threat, and that opens the door for your path to the win.
Absolutely.
One thing I
would
really want to
say-
sorry, I just want to like really draw attention to the fact that even when Clementine and I were both plotting to like dismantle the pastas from within, Shinx was not our target. Like Shinx was safe from our wrath. It was either like us plotting against each other or us plotting against Tiny. Like he was very very well insulated,
Yep.
and like Tiny was always the target before him, and you know like that really was so valuable because by the time we got her out we couldn't backdoor him. You know, like
Yeah.
that backdoor at 7 was fucking insane.
So that leads into
sorry,
the point
yeah.
I was going to make, which is that typically we see like comping out as not as impressive, which is probably why Shinx is on more of a mid-high tier rather than the high. However, his comping out was perfectly orchestrated. It was part of his strategy. It was intentional, and it was timed perfectly down to a T, to the point where he said in his confessional multiple times he was not allowing Tiny to go before 7 because he did not want the opportunity to backdoor himself. He knew he wanted to be, he was okay with being the comp threat starting at Final 6, not a day sooner. And he executed
was
that
right
perfectly
to.
with some major help from Carlbot or whoever does our veto draws. But
Katsu, love of my life.
That works
Yeah.
out so
And
fucking well. Oh,
Yeah.
that was beautiful.
But I will say, yeah, his comping out, that was always part of his strategy intentionally. And while he did do the strategy of like, let me take out the big, huge threat at 3, because you know Isabel did play Brother Green, socially at least. I would say, you know, we talked about other potential high up final 3s of BBR is actually as well BBR 15.
Absolutely.
So he was still a strong and exciting and compelling winner, even after cutting the major threat to win the whole game.
And by the way, that was his ride or die, and he was willing to take her out even before I betrayed him. You were always going to take me out at 3, right? Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
We discussed it.
Yeah.
Which is why I was like, I don't feel guilty about having Sombra above you because, like, Sombra would have fucking taken me and you would not have. So I want to apologize for recognizing that.
You nominating him kind of ruined that ride or die relationship, I suspect.
That's
The fact that I was leaking all his shit ruined that ride or die relationship. I was such a bad ride or die.
But I did want to say, to go back, just because I didn't want it to get lost in the sauce, because I said Shinx played a safe game and then we kind of got sidetracked. The ending to that point was going to be, I think Shinx had this like safe first half, but like Jackson said, you can't win the game in the first half. You can only lose it. So I think it was actually a very clever way to play the game. You guys, let me get there. I was gonna say, I think it was actually a very clever way to navigate a way through a very huge stacked cast. Stacked, one of the strongest casts of BB Rewind history ever.
Yeah.
And that dumbass
probably
twist.
the strongest cast we've ever had, I would say.
Full
Fully
of fan favorites, all
fan favorites,
stars, runners
all-stars.
up.
Everybody.
It was, and so
And Kent.
navigating his way through that cat and Kent
And Jen.
and navigating your way through that cast into putting yourself perfectly into position, literally to the cycle to get yourself where you need to go, was extremely impressive.
Absolutely.
And I think because Shinx played that quote unquote safety card and everyone kind of knew that Shinx was doing that safety thing, I think it was very impactful for him to be really vulnerable and open in the final 2 jury questioning. And I think that is not only did Sombra burn the jury, but I think Shinx also had a very good final two performance because of that fire and the emotion and everything that happened after such a bottled, really safe, controlled game. When I think of Shinx's BB Rewind's 15 game, I think of control, not controlling the game specifically, but having a lot of self-control and restraint. And I don't think that's something a lot of our winners have. Um, I really don't. I really, you know what I mean? I think it's something that really makes Shinx's game unique. Is it's kind of its own special little thing. So
Also,
And one thing,
you go ahead, Sydney.
I was just gonna add one thing, and this is just kind of basing off of how Jackson, his like quartiles for ranking the winners. I think the biggest knock, remembering back to Shinx winning or your game Shinx, is, and I think this will matter the least to you, which it honestly should, is like the entertainment value. Like I would not say, and part of it was that that cast was just so stacked, and you were playing with one goal, and that was to win, and that's what you got, and you played an amazing game, but it wasn't really that fun to watch a lot of the time.
He's a game
and there's
bot.
nothing
You
wrong
can
with
say
that.
it. He's
Shinx is
a
trying to
game
win.
bot.
Meanwhile, Tiny Kong is having sex in the house chat. So
Yeah.
you know.
Like,
Purple
yeah, like
Pikmin is on like
yeah.
LSD.
drug-filled
Just
forest.
like in like the middle of nowhere.
Missing
Yeah.
postcard is reading out. Yeah.
Well, the
Yes.
thing is too is that like Shanks was the straight man, and literally, but the straight man in all
Yes.
of it. You know what I mean?
Correct,
Like
yeah.
surrounded by these fucking wild, crazy people, literally sexing
Yeah.
the cat. Shanks was the one that it was all happening to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Correct.
He's the
Yeah.
sitcom main character.
It's the sitcom.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I don't think it's even really a knock to his game at all, obviously, because for most of the time, entertainment value has nothing to do with how good of a winner you are. But I think when I think back, that's partly the reason why it doesn't go higher for me, is I just don't remember feeling like I was really excited when you got to final 2 and 1. But for most of the game, it's like you were coasting on purpose. Like it was a good strategic move, but there wasn't much there to be entertained by.
Yeah.
But also like the shit post of it all of Shinx playing as Shinx.
I was just
and-
gonna
That
say,
was the
I'm like, they
funniest
can't
part.
undervalue that though.
Yeah.
Honestly,
And-
okay, personally, I was just annoyed by it because I was like, why are you doing this? It's
I thought it
stupid.
was
Because I
Um,
knew that I would find everyone else, so I thought it'd only be fair if they found me bad.
Well, it's very admirable.
and it'd be funny to do the Shank
Sure.
because I love the Dana.
I'm glad it worked out for you because I was like, he's gonna lose because of this.
I do want to say when we brought up Howie, we said that until very recently, Howie was the record holder for percentage wins.
Mhm.
That person that technically there is someone that is above Shinx that I discovered through this process, but it is a giant asterisk next to it. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say that Shinx has the record for the biggest competition win percentage of the winners.
I do have the most
Record for
wins.
the
like,
most comps won in a season.
That's true. Shinx just flat out does
Yeah.
have 11 competition wins of the
Mhm.
24 competitions that he competed in.
Yeah.
He also holds the veto record. He won 7 power of vetoes, which is kind of insane. That's
And I did it before Jag did. Fuck.
yeah, that's like over half of the vetoes. I think what if
I
there were
think there was
16
14
people, there was
vetoes.
probably 13 or 14
I mean,
veto
if
comp-
I was nominated that many times, I'd try and win that many vetoes too.
literally. I remember Alex at Final Four specifically not having Shinx be a nominee to start with because she said, I don't want him to take himself off with
I
the
begged. I was like,
Yeah.
I have 6 vetoes and 6 knobs, and there's
Yeah.
only one way this ends. I either get 7 knobs and I leave, or I
Yeah.
get 7 vetoes and
Yeah.
I go further.
Yes. So yeah, that puts Shinx at a 45.83% competition win rate, which is crazy.
It was insane to watch.
We love you, Shinxy.
We love Shanks.
We love you,
And that's why
Boo-Rah.
with having left, I'm like, with that fucking record I lost to him, that's fine. Like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh
But
yeah.
yes, from Shinx at number 7, we go on to our number 6 ranked winner. Throwing it back a few seasons from 15. Still in the double digits, though. We have the winner of Big Brother Rewind's 10, April.
Woo!
He led icon,
Woo!
star, everything you could possibly say. Alice, absolute icon.
I love Alice so much.
Yes.
I'm surprised she's this low.
Me too.
I kind of was too, honestly.
Yeah.
It
But
does
looking at the top people, it makes sense.
it does make sense once I got there, but I was kind of shocked to see her not be like top 4, top 5. But
I
she's
had her like top 5, I believe.
yeah.
I think I put her
Um,
fourth.
Actually,
Yeah, I put
Jackson,
her
looking at the individual list, it's your fault.
Not I put I did put her at 6 actually. Maybe not you.
wow.
I put her at 6. She was
Beautiful.
number 5 for the spectators, and she was number 5.
Well, and you're the only person that's Krista 2.0 above her.
That's true. Listen, don't blame
But
me. Blame the metric.
About April
Or
right
Krista
now.
1.0, whatever it's called. Yeah, back to April.
For starters, she was never nominated, so you
second,
have to
Period.
second
that.
person, most
It's-
recent still.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, speaks for itself. She's one of these players that had like so many social options. She had Angie with her for part of the game, and then they had kind of this like standoff where they were both threatened by each other, but both ended up still at final 3 together because they knew they needed each other as shields. Steven was April's ride or die, and she waits till the perfect moment to cut him and leaves herself able to win competitions in the end game without him there. So that ends up playing out perfectly. And she has just options and has just a tight social grip on the game. I think compared to some other players higher up this list that also dominated the social strategic game. I think the reason why April is just a little bit below that is because season 10 is a season where people kind of saw the writing on the wall and threw in the towel instead of fighting to the end.
Yeah.
We have Keisha kind of bowing out, Ollie, Rennie just straight up quits when her enemy Angie wins HOH. So I
No.
feel like
No, she did. She was
these-
sick. She was sick.
very
got
ill
better the
and then
day
made a
after she
miraculous
quit.
recovery immediately. But there are
I'm
these
sick.
points where there's just less for April to overcome. She's able to kind of just like keep a great position and roll with it through the game, but it still takes a lot of work to do that.
Yeah. Also, I would be remiss if we don't bring up the one round that she was America's player and she lost her fucking mind.
Ugh.
Like that's such a highlight for me, and I remember that as kind of the core, but I also remember April being very entertaining across the season and just being so much fun.
Yeah, as America's player, she was tasked with targeting Angie, who was the other big power player in the game, and she got Angie on the block. So,
Yeah.
America calls her to action, she jumps in for us.
Yeah. And I remember when, because even as far back as season 10, when after it had wrapped, we had already decided that we wanted to try and bring back like all winners for the coaches for 14. And it was like out of the question. Like after the season wrap, we were like, we have to try and get April on this cast. In my mind, she is I think one of, if I wouldn't say the best, but absolutely like on the Mount Rushmore of like best social players in the
Yeah.
series that we've seen. I think she could throw her hat in the ring for strategy and strategic players as well. She knew what to do when and was very well positioned the entire game, basically. I mean, it's like what we said. She was never nominated the whole time.
And of this winners list, she is in the top 3 for first-time player winners.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people who came back and won on a multiple appearances. So the fact on her first time she played this amazing game really speaks
I had
for
her in top
itself.
4.
Yeah, such a dominant game.
Yeah, I
think-
had her fourth or fifth, but as somebody who has played with Alice, like she really is like an
Love
unstoppable force. Like she's just so likable. She's really good. Yeah, she's just really good. She's just great.
Yeah,
She's
period. That's
I
just
remember the org I played with her. She was like the major threat. Like, and of course she was.
Yeah.
And I think just a quick nod because it's kind of our sister series. She's the only person who's won same Viver and Rewinds. Like,
That's true.
and it was like back to back. I think in real life.
It was
like,
pretty close together, yeah.
Yeah. Slay.
But yeah, I genuinely have like nothing bad to say about April or her game. Like it was that good. I will say I think since I was called out for being the reason that April got 6th place in the top 5, I think a lot of my determining factor is probably why she isn't higher is because while she was entertaining, I do think there were people that probably I would consider flashier winners above this, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is
And
Who
10
knew
was
put us
kind
in
of
the
a
top 5?
like,
10 was
okay.
kind of a ho hum season. Like 10
Yeah.
was
10 was a very 10 is
Fine.
And
very,
10 is
10
also
isn't
covered
it-
off by 11 at this point now.
yeah, true. It
yeah,
was
like 10,
like
10 was good. It's not bad.
yeah, exactly.
It's
I think it gets lost in the middle a lot of the times. I remember when we
Like
were
with
talking
9, I'm stuck with 9.
about when it came out, like it was about like in the middle of our rankings.
It
Like,
was April, Angie, and Steven that were like the stars of that season,
Absolutely.
and they
Yeah.
all went on to play again. For April in 14, I feel like she felt obliged to accept the invitation, but I don't think she was really in a headspace to want to be playing orgs at the time, and she
Yeah.
wasn't fully invested. But even then, she still had people that were like in her corner, and she nearly stayed and like campaigned and was one vote away pretty much from surviving the block when she did go.
The
And then
Frank of it all.
hard position with, those coaches are immune, it opens up, and then it's easy pickings at that point for one of them to be an
Right.
easy. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I if my memory serves correctly, I think it was honestly more so of like a vote flip against her that she went out when she did in 14 than it was like those were the votes that were already there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
she's a legend icon star. I have
We love April.
nothing but good things to say about
So true.
April Alice.
Love you, Slice.
I think it is. I think the reason that she drops a little lower for me personally, I normally don't have April any lower than 5 if I like think through my regular rankings. I do think it is just that cast. Like Jack said, we have 3, 4 standouts ish. Or not ish, like 3, 4 ish standouts. And then we have like really good moments that happen in 10, like Keisha and the hospital friend,
Ugh.
he quitting,
Jerry getting
Ryan
backdoored
getting
for no
backdoored
reason.
for no reason. Like there's
Ryan making like a million alliances without consulting anyone
Anybody.
before.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like there's some really fun parts, but I think it lacks a little competitive
It lacks some
edge.
Yeah.
Lacks
Yeah.
the sauce lacks something
Just a
in
little
season 10, just a little bit.
The runner-up asked to be evicted and didn't get evicted. So that kind of
Yeah, that is one knock I have against April's game. Is like the final 2 situation. And still got votes even after
Well,
asking.
it was Bitter Dan and his ride or die Angie. So
I know, but it's still just a weird like
not
I
too
think
much
that's the
on
one thing
Queen
that
Missy.
mars.
Okay.
she was bitter.
That's
He
grandmother.
left the
Fucking
game
mouth.
scorning April also because April really led Dan on like heavily and then was like, sorry, I need Libra more. Bye.
I think she had the date with Dan for the jury meeting, and I think she had it, or Ollie had it. One of them had it. But if she did have it with Dan, she didn't smooth it over at all. But I think Ollie had it with Dan, so never mind.
But you know what? Still wasn't close. It wasn't like
Yeah.
4-3. It was 5-2. So
Yeah.
I think Angie was always gonna vote for Ollie. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
yeah.
Top 5, I think.
Top 5, baby. Top 5, baby.
Top 5, baby. Top 5, baby.
But
Yay.
we've reached the end game now. We're in the top 5, everybody. Top third.
Let's go.
We talked
Who
about
Cole's in the top 5 is absurd.
Krista once. We all
Once
talked about
again,
it.
blame Jackson.
Literally.
Listen, I had a method. But yes, as Shinx just referred to, Cole indeed is in this top 5 twice. And here's one of them. For in 5th place, we
Speaking
have
of 2,
Krista Big Brother 2 game.
our inaugural winner.
Yay.
I
Let
think
me
the anniversary
tell
was some
you,
weeks ago.
this game live was the most fun thing to play out just because Krista was here scrapping for the fun of it, not caring. She was telling Cheryl in private messages, like, oh,
Milf
I
Hunter.
love that your favorite animal is a fox. And then in her nomination speech, calls her out for being like, you have the most basic favorite animal. How dare you? It was iconic to me. She was the MILF hunter and then she became the MILF. But she honestly did what Cole does when playing from a position of power, which is have all these people thinking they're really in tight with him, pointing people at each other, and then having this core duo with Shannon, and then just running the table with her and taking out
Didn't he?
any potential targets.
Sound familiar?
It's true. I do want to say, like I said when we were talking about Shinx, this is technically, percentage-wise, the biggest percentage. Technically, Krista in season 2 competed in 9 separate head of household competitions because they didn't have veto. in season 2. It was just HOH, and won 6 of them. So
Because in Big Brother 2, someone could and did win all 3 parts of the final HOH, and it's absurd. And I'm
yeah.
glad they fixed it. But
So
that was crazy.
technically, Krista on this season has like a 67% win rate in competitions.
But yeah,
But
also with the no veto, she only got nominated once at Final Four. So
exactly.
I will give the flower. And the first and only of 2 winner fan fave combo.
Yeah. So I will say I would put a quite large asterisk next to it. But Krista in this season does technically have the largest win percentage for competition.
One of my favorite moments of the season is at Final Four. Krista and Shannon hid their duo so well that when Mike wins HOH and is targeting Krista, it's at that point that he's like, all right, Krista, you're the biggest threat. You have to go. He leaves Shannon off the block. And then everyone, Nicole and Mike, are fully expecting Shannon to evict Krista. And Shannon steps up and says, Mike, you have one job and you failed. I vote to evict Nicole, and gagged him. And I loved that moment.
Cunty.
That's really great.
Hats off.
I also feel like early on, like Monica was a huge presence, and Krista was instantly like, nope, you have to go because you're not like in my social circle. You have your own social group. So she nipped him in the bud. I mean, her in the bud.
Not Krista
and
taking out my King Ollie.
I know,
shit, I
but
did
you
that
know,
too.
at least we were really seated for Lil Nas X's amazing run in All Stars.
Oh my god.
Yikes. That may or may not have ended round 2 because of me.
Then you're muted.
We don't have to talk about that. I mean, yeah, I think it's so cool that not only obviously the other 2 wins that follow this have nothing to do with this, but I think it's so cool that like the very first winner of like the US franchise of Big Brother Rewinds has gone on to so consistently be such a large and like arguably the biggest presence like across the
He
series.
did found BB Cam with Jack.
That's true, yeah, and was one of the founders of
Full circle.
No, he
Big
fully
Brother
had the idea of the whole series of having alts and doing the same season formulas, and he invited me to host BB Can 1 with him.
Yeah.
So from there, I was like his side host, and then kind of took over starting season 3 as just the sole host, and he wasn't going to continue it at that point. But so we're all here because of him.
Yeah, and I do think
Full
that it's
circle.
cool that Jackson was talking about, just to give a little bit more, because I'm pretty sure we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Cole's Julia Roberts game coming up. So
As we
I don't
should.
really feel like we're going to linger here, especially because Big Brother Rewinds 2 is kind of so drastically different a format.
Yeah.
Than
Shortest
what-
season, no veto.
yeah, no veto, shorter season. Like it's just a lot different. But like Jackson said, it is really cool because when you think about a lot of seasons like this, at least on the real show, you kind of wonder sometimes if the old dogs, quote unquote, can compete with like the newer formats and faster, quicker games that have a lot more things going on and a lot more interesting strategy and that kind of stuff. So it is cool that we have like literally the first winner ever of like the second season can still like throw it with the best of them and is unarguably probably like the best player across all big
Yeah.
Brother.
I mean,
Yeah.
Considering he
it's
won.
And
You
I
know.
will say as like somebody as like going towards this like idea of like how he's won so many times despite being labeled as a winner. In one of our sister series hosted by Jackson and Graham, Pixel Brother, I played the inaugural season and Cole was cast on the season. And I was like, well, fuck me, because I was like a big Julie Roberts hater. Like, but I because like I knew his game, I saw right through his shit. And yet we started playing together, and I was like, I'm having so much fun playing with Cole. To where it was like I didn't care. Like, I mean, I never would have like taken him to final 2 or anything, but I let him get much farther in the game than I had any right to, as somebody who going into that game knew he had a massive threat level, knew the mist he could have, and like he fucking missed it me,
And
knowing
that's
that I
fun.
had missed. Like knowing that he knew that I knew that he had missed, and he still missed it me. Like it's crazy.
And then he won the
Yeah.
season.
Like
Cole
what I
has
said
then he
about
won that
every-
fucking season too.
He has won
Like
literally every game of Big Brother
everything.
I've ever seen him play.
Yeah.
Like
I've
I said
watched
about
him
Zav,
before,
I've
and he's
seen
won every
Zav play
single one.
5, and Zav's won 3. I've seen Cole play 4. He's won 4. It's
Yeah.
I've been on 2 seasons with him, and he lost both. So
Well,
I'll see you in the
Okay.
ring next time.
Not Jack popping the bubble. But yeah, I also think something that can like never be understated about Cole is that he is always down to clown.
Yeah.
He is, you can say a lot of things about him. He's never not gonna be fucking entertaining.
Let's just say he was down to clown as Krista with Kent and BB2.
Ugh.
That energy with Hazel, it was happening here as well.
Yeah.
Let's
And
not
we're
forget
all
Bunky,
regretful of
who is
that.
someone's literal mother. Flirting
Yeah.
with Ken.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just,
Not the bump and uglies.
But yes, so we're still gonna talk about this motherfucker one more time in this list. So I think we're safe that we can move on. From top 5, we go to top 4. We have another player that is kind of further back in the season. I would say one of the people we kind of consider like a Mount Rushmore Big Brother Rewinds player. We have from my own season, Big Brother Rewinds 5, we have the Lori Valenti.
the emoji, do the face. The most iconic
Mother
emoji we
alert.
have, hands down,
Mother
by
condition.
far.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
guess
true. The Lori emoji is like the top tier BBR emoji, like of all time. Like as soon as I entered the server, started spectating, I use that everywhere. Like that is
I use Lori
everything to
outside of
me.
Rewind.
I also use
Sydney,
Lori
you're on
outside of
mute.
Reruns.
yeah. But I guess I can start off this one because I'm the only one, at least in the context of Rewinds, that has played on a mainline season with her. But
Her righty dighty.
that's true. I was the Cindy Lou to her Grinch, despite the common misconception that I was the Grinch and she was Cindy Lou Who. It was
I
actually
wonder why we would think that.
I don't know.
He's
It's
wearing green right now, by the way. He is
I'm
wearing
sorry.
green.
Are you trying to make us believe that in a scenario you could be the hero and Ari could be the villain?
Listen, when we named the alliance, that was the joke.
It's
It was
true.
that
She
I
was
was
the
Cindy
Grinch.
Lou Who, I was little blonde Karen, and that she was the Grinch. Okay, so that's what we're going with.
Interesting.
You're
It's
on.
someone who's won multiple villains of the season against literally the kindest human being on the Discord app.
You won villain of the season on BB Rewinds 5.
It's true.
When-
I did. I will
Lori
stick.
won hero.
I will stick by the fact that I wasn't a villain. I was just a strong, opinionated woman on that season.
You were a
Okay,
Karen, so
In Rewinds 5, I remember when we were first starting to talk about, because this obviously we're on like season 17 now. This was like it was a while ago. But
we were banging
Rewinds
seasons out in
5,
2020.
yeah, Jack started talking about it, and I remember saying, if I remember anything about the pre-jury of that season correctly, it is that me and Lori and Diane ran that pre-jury like the fucking Navy. And
Donkey Kong lovers.
honestly, I think
DKL.
we did. I
I was a
believe
DKL stan.
of the 5, I guess technically, well, yeah, no, I guess there were technically 5 pre-jury weeks because of the twins
Yeah.
coming in. Me, Lori, or Diane were HOH 4 of those 5 times. So also something I'd want to say, but like also I have all of the personal experience, both even outside of Rewinds. I had already played with Ari twice at this point, through both of my seasons of Crystal Brother, and I even like put it together in my mind that Ari was Lori probably about halfway through the season. And even despite all the history that we've had, I was still like, oh, I'm absolutely like we're doing it. And we Ari is just the kind of person, kind of like what we said with Cole and like what we've said with like Alice and what we've said with a lot of these people. On any given org, Ari is going to do really well because she's the nicest person you've ever met. She's has like social games out the anything. She's one of the
Yeah.
most consistent and strongest social players ever.
Every
in
time
anything.
we could have asked her back, we did. And we
Yep.
in the main series, we
Yes.
have not gotten a yes yet because the timing does
We've
not work.
been begging.
But
We're
we
holding
will
out,
keep
though.
We're on
asking
our fucking
every
hands and
single
knees.
We're gonna
time.
get it one of these times.
You
I
will.
think
I promise.
that the difference is like, so like they all have really strong social games, right? The 3 you just mentioned, kind of like a power 3. Cole is the most like outright manipulative.
Mhm.
Alice is sort of where somewhere in between, where she is very genuine, very sweet, but she will be kind of like strategic and shady. Ari is just the most like genuine, forthright, like just like lovely human who kind of, she maybe a bit to her detriment sometimes. Because when I played with her, she kind of fell on her sword, but like she just kept like she doesn't have a traitorous bone in her body. You know.
Karen, do you agree she doesn't have a traitorous bone in her body?
I was about to say,
At
I
the
think
time,
that's
at
that
the time,
might
I
be-
disagreed, but like I did. I mean, I still voted for her at the end. And
Wait, did she cut you? Did she like fully?
Yes.
Sort of
Yes.
kind of picked Diane at the last minute over
but
Karen.
also there was an
Oh,
alliance.
good for
that-
her. I'm proud
there
of
was-
you. Thank
yeah,
you. Good
there
job,
was an
Ari.
alliance that got made that I didn't really hold a lot of stock in, and I was kind of making
Oh yeah.
just
Diane leaked the alliance, Karen didn't.
And I
So at that point, I think Diane did get the rung. I want to talk about some specific moves. So that's obviously a big one, is being willing to cut Karen as her main competition. But then you may expect someone that won so many competitions and was so like out in front socially to struggle after that point. But she really like fought to have a great end game where she was secure and she was safe. And the double eviction is the best case of that for me, where she has Diane as her ride or die, and Diane in the double wants to save Nokomis, while Lori knows that Samokin, the other twin, is her. I cannot say that name seriously, but is her like actual connection that's going to protect her in Endgame. So she goes against her ride or die at that point, ties the vote. The vote falls in her favor. She goes to final three then with Diane and Sim, and they're both going to take her to the end, and they're both going to lose to her in the end. So she's guaranteed the win at final three, and she fought for
That's my mother.
And that's our first female winner, our actual
Yes.
I
Actual
also want to
female.
say, because this was another thing that I kind of didn't expect going into doing this physical game ranking, but she's actually number 4, like in the physical rankings. She's
You guys ate the comps
Ari
up
can
back then.
Ari can eat a comp when she
Yeah.
needs
Ari,
to,
Jackson, and
and
Boone
when
were,
she
like,
wants
dog
to.
handling those comps. It was
she
crazy.
competed in 19 separate competitions across Big Brother Rewind's 5, and she won 8 of them. So she won 5 HOH competitions and 3 vetoes. So she has a 42.11%.
Good for her. That's my mother.
So it really, in my mind, is kind of like
And got
Mommy.
taken right to her victory.
Yeah. And yeah, she didn't even have to win final HOH to go to the end and then overwhelmingly win. And the only reason that Marvin didn't vote for her to win is because he didn't want her to have like a perfect game.
It's
So-
cute.
That was the singular. That was a
bitch.
singular vote.
Yeah, it was 6 to
Yes,
1.
it was just Goose.
Wow.
Oh, it was
of fucking
Goose?
course it was Goose.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll let that be on the record. I don't fucking care.
But yeah, because I mean, obviously, I remember like she won back-to-back HOHs like pre-jury. She won like weeks 2 and 4, I think. But I don't, in my
Yeah.
mind, necessarily think of Lori's game as this like dominating physical game. But like,
She won a comp every
Well,
other
that's-
week.
well,
2, 4,
That's when
6,
you know
8.
you played an impressive game, when
Yeah.
it's kind of like, in my opinion, Nicole, or at least Nicole from the spectators and host perspective, where it's like like she had an incredible physical game, but that was not the focus of her game. That was not the center point of her game. It was
Mhm.
not even close to the most impressive part of her game. So I
Agreed.
think when you can be a fucking comp beast like that and not be looked at as a comp beast because you're just firing on all cylinders elsewhere, that's impressive as hell.
yeah, she ate.
I think it's only when like your physical game is the only thing you can brag about that I have like no
Yeah.
respect for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's still impressive, but it's just not going to be as impressive.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Lori's a fucking eater, and I love her.
She will be back. I
And-
promise.
Mommy.
And we love
Mommy.
For me,
Period.
no offense to someone on this podcast, but for me, she was my number 3 ranked winner just
She-
because she's such an
yeah.
all-rounder and
Same.
played so dominantly. And this cast was honestly no slouch.
No.
Like there wasn't many, there was like maybe one person who wasn't around at all. And then some people who were like in the like lower tier, but then other people were just messy, and she was able to use that to her advantage with Diane and Karen. when Scott formed an all men's alliance and it leaked, and they like used
did.
that for every inch it was worth. Believe me.
That's
So
true.
I was about to say Lori is also my personal number 3 ranked winner.
Is this one my fault too? Yeah, I had her. I had her at
actually,
5.
actually, it's spec
leave
vote.
it to
It is a
Karen, the
3.
tanker, revenge.
Also, the spec vote. The spec vote didn't have her up.
That's true.
The spec vote had her
the
down
spec
too.
vote put her at 4 as well.
Yeah.
So it's not wholly my fault, but a decent amount my fault.
I tried, girl. I tried. I know you're not listening at this point in time, but just know.
Yeah. All right. Top 4. How about top 3? Congratulations on top 3. That's a huge achievement in Big Brother.
Yay!
Oh my god.
I mean, this is huge. Huge. Gigantic.
Big even.
Does
Huge.
anyone hear any
Huge.
alarms going off?
Huge.
What is that sound?
It's almost like
What is that sound,
almost
guys?
like an Amber Alert.
Oh.
Oh my god.
But yes, in the 3rd spot, we do indeed have the winner of Big Brother Rewinds 13, Amber, who happens to be ranked in the form of Graham.
Graham.
Graham, we did it with Shanks. We would like to do it with you as well.
God.
If you could sum up your game as best as possible in about a paragraph.
Snake, whore,
Please.
bitch, snake. No, I think my Big Brother Rewinds 13 game was actually just largely a continuation of my Big Brother Rewinds 8 game. In which
Play 1, play 2.
yeah, but this time I learned to use, I think we talked about it earlier, like Cody, about him being a social strategic winner. I think this time I learned to use my social connections strategically, which is not something I did the first time. And I was also willing to cut allies, and I did not do that the first time, and that's what lost me the game. So yeah, I guess that's how I would describe my game.
Slay.
I mean,
Right.
Then we have another personal expert here.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yes. We have someone that could have been the rival of that season, perhaps people would consider.
Yet again, another one.
Yet again, that's true.
I'm the
Actually.
rival of 2 different winners.
And we're
Iconic.
all here.
But yes, Alex, as of course, the she villain, Shelly.
Oh,
On-
No, it's the lesbian.
The Vi lesbian.
Yeah, the
Lesbian.
The
of
villain
course.
lesbian.
No, I have to say Graham's game was, so as much as I like give him shit about the whole like, oh my god, you offered me a final 2 in the first like hour and then I turned it down and you like completely systematically destroyed my game because of it. That's like that's an exaggeration, but also like not
That's pretty accurate.
so
Actually.
good. I know it would actually is quite accurate. Graham was just so good at like, it was almost like a tapestry he was weaving, just as far as like the social connections and the information flow and just kind of figuring out what the dynamics of the game were. That relationship with Angie that you had was so fucking key as far as being able to kind of get the information about the other like power side of the house, because I was telling Angie everything about my game and I was getting a lot of information in from the various social connections I had. So you had even more then. And that was just like so fucking impressive. My favorite part is that like is knowing that even if so Chelsea did a lot to blow up my game, because like I nominated her and Josh and I had previously been like kind of good with them. Because they kept winning and I was afraid of being nominated. But like I just know that if Chelsea had not blown up my game, you had all the ammo you needed and more to completely destroy me in like 3 DMs, you know, like so there was no way that I was going to be like winning that season without comping out. And I wasn't comping out because I had shit notes and you had amazing notes. Like you were gonna walk that end game no matter what.
That all
And
disappeared.
I do want to.
Graham finally
oh
learned
my
how
God,
to keep
that's
track
right.
of time zones.
Graham's notes got deleted
Congratulations.
right before Zingland, and he like crash course rebuilt them
Yeah,
by hand.
I remember
But
that.
I was gonna mention that he also come into this game with a partner thing where like Kaster and Angie were like, actual friends, and Kaster is the reason Angie played. Josh and Chelsea did an entire season together, and then Amber came in was Jamaica, who was A, inactive, and B, when she was active, was throwing Amber under the bus.
Yes.
And Amber basically ran off and stole Kaser's partner. I was like, okay, my partner sucks. I'm getting a new one.
Well,
And they
it helps
To
that
be
like
fair, Kaser was
Angie
also
stuck
fucking
with Kaser.
insane.
Yeah.
So
Kaser was
Angie was like,
insane.
please get me out of here.
And they
Yeah,
just
Angie
like
was
They
went
like,
found
I just
solace
need
in each
help.
other. It was great.
and yeah,
But I think
with their own partner
Alex,
roles.
Alex kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think a major part of Amber's winning game is game recognizing game. Amber immediately clocked who the strong social players
She
were going to
became the
be,
Danielle in a sense.
both in recognizing that Angie was the big returnee that she needed to click with, and in recognizing that her and Shelley were playing very, very similar games. They were very, very similar socially and strategically. And I think had Amber not had her eye on those two players throughout and made key connections with them, that she would not have been able to get to the end. But I think the fact that that was something always on her mind and something that she was always playing around was huge.
She pretty much said, "Sorry, Kaser, I'm stealing your partner for you for the time being," and snatched her away.
And turned them against each other.
She did that
actively.
through lying when there was the whole leak of who is ratting out our alliance to Joshua, and it was both of them. Kaser did it, and then Amber did it right after, and they're both accusing each other, and everyone thinks it was only one of them. She took the Hail Mary risk of assuming there was a 3-person alliance.
Oh, it's so
between,
good.
I believe, Shelley,
I forgot about
Kaser,
that.
and Angie.
How could
That
you?
taught me so much
she-
about being careful about how revealing social relationships through flow of information. Because seeing how you were able to piece that together, I was like, oh fuck, okay.
Mhm.
Like that was
fact that
so
she could guess
smart.
it the fact that she could bluff it so confidently.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah, that was so
I
good.
said earlier, like top 5 BBR moves. That is
That's one of
absolutely
them,
in there.
for
Probably
sure.
top 3
Hands
BBR
down.
moves. It's a move that I considered using in an org later because I was like, I am almost positive this alliance exists, but I could not find the fucking balls to do it because I was like, I want to do it, but I just don't know if I could pull it off.
When you're
But
when you're like do or die, you just do whatever the fuck at that point.
And
Yeah, I
it's,
mean,
it's fucking remarkable. It's really powerful.
It was just a really amazing evolution to see because
Yeah.
Amber on season 8 is this fallen hero, like amazing character, had so much potential, was like the biggest lock at that time where I was like, I want to see her play again. She has more story to tell. So for her not to just to come back, but to come back and step it up and embrace things outside of her comfort zone and to have it pay off was really satisfying to watch.
And learn how to tell
Also,
time.
And a lot of her decisions were informed by her prior traumas. So that's growth. You know?
that was the third org I'd ever played too. I haven't.
That's wild.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Was
I
it 4-5-1 is your record now?
Yeah.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just talk for fun about the time she accidentally voted Lawan. She just
The
meant
only
the
stain in
other
his voting
name,
record that
but
season.
then it was early in the morning, a little delirious, and
was 6
nearly
a.m. on my
voted
way
out
to work.
Lawan by
And
like
almost
one vote.
the vote almost flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the one vote
Kaser
difference.
almost voted the other way just for fun. And
Yeah.
Like
I was already voting with Cassie to show her loyalty because I was obsessed with Cassie. And I was like, this seems like
As you
fun.
should
Let's
be.
just vote against one of my top allies. Why
Yeah.
not?
My
So,
favorite part
that
about
would've
the
been so
entire
insane.
thing was actually flipping it onto Kaser, who actually didn't end up doing it, but onto Kaser, Shelley, and Joshua, because to Lawan, and that's how I finally separated Lawan and Shelley and Adam by virtue of that was by convincing Lawan that you guys were the ones who'd voted him out, even though I did, and I kept up that charade.
Well, I
And
did, but
after the season, after we knocked the
season was
vote, you
over.
were still
Yeah.
doing it, and I was like, "You can stop lying." You know,
Those
you
new
can't
votes.
I had
keep the
literally
vote.
convinced myself that it was the truth. I lied.
Oh,
about
I had
it
a
so
conversation with Angie where I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Josh and Kaysar did that." And she's like, "You did that." Oh fuck, I forgot about that. I literally
no.
forgot that I voted for him for a second.
That's awesome.
And I want to point out when we were talking about the stats and stuff, I was like, "Does anyone care about voting records?" And Graham was the first one to say, "No, no one cares about voting
No.
records."
No, we
And then
don't.
I look and I'm like, "Wait a minute, why does Graham not care?" And I look, and the only stain on his record that's because he was half asleep.
Yeah.
I said, no one
I
cares.
do find voting records and completely irrelevant because
That is-
There's like
you
7
can use
minority votes from all our winners.
you can use
15
voting
seasons,
incorrectly
so.
strategically, and in
Yeah.
modern day orgs, everybody's like, "Oh, the majority is here. So I'm just gonna vote for it." So it doesn't fucking matter. Like voting correctly does not mean that you
I
voted
like
how
the
you wanted to vote.
stat.
And I also, for competitions, I'm like, I value people who throw and know on the right time to win.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That is
I agree
another-
as well.
That is one of my favorite memories of the season is my magnum opus of Angie Luigiing herself into a win of the veto because I threw at the proper time, watching these people fuck up throwing over and over and over again. I don't remember who it was. I legitimately remember adding
It was
someone
I think Joshua got.
I remember
lost by
adding
default.
someone in my DR that was a spec that was like, that's how you throw a competition. I think it was Christian. I watched them
Christian
do it
doesn't
in
know how to
Pixel. I don't
throw.
remember who it was.
Yeah.
But
Maybe.
it was a fun season. I had a good time.
Also, we've talked about stacked casts. The
Yeah.
really, like, I would say like the top 10, because I would include Cassie in like
Oh yeah.
just
Cassie
fucking
was so fucking fun. All right, if you got her in the afternoon, she is a delight.
Yeah.
The time when
She
she
was
casually
everything.
dropped her drug dealer lore to me, I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so obsessed with you.
the top 10 of that season are just so good,
The
unmatched.
jury of BB Rewinds 13 is fucking
So good.
insane in terms
Yeah,
of
and
It's insane.
for
For me
Yeah.
and my like ratings, this game is not as completely dominant as like a Krista 1.0 or an April or a Lori. But like looking at this cast and how stacked it is, and also this duos twist, which just like on BB6, that contributed to a split house. And this season, when you have these like loyal duos coming in from returning players and then newbie players having this vet newbie divide, it's going to make it harder to just like steamroll a season, especially when everyone's at this caliber or is particularly unpredictable. Like Chelsea winning all these competitions and throwing spanners in the mix. So it was really seeing Amber like overcome the hardships and planning ahead and maximizing her odds that impressed me so much. And, she kind of creates this alliance in the end game with her relationship with Lawan, and she has Adam, and kind of that trio towards the end is really what sets her up to get closer to the finish line.
That's one thing I would actually like to highlight about Amber's game is how good she was about reaching across that newbie vet divide. Because there were definitely some players who were very like firm borders about it. Which I think is actually one of the reasons why I was like kissing ass so much with Chelsea and Josh is because they were very like vet strong. Let's pick off the newbies, and I was terrified. Whereas Amber was very like I felt safe with Amber. Like she very much like made it clear that she didn't care about like these alleged sides and that she just kind of wanted to like play with the people she liked best. And I think that fluidity really clearly helped her in endgame since the other two people of that trio were newbies.
Yeah. I mean, we hit the jury phase. We hit final 9, and quite literally every other vet other than Amber in the game goes out 9-8-7-6.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
makes
that
sense.
was crazy. It was one of those like instances where it's like, why are we not targeting the vets? Why are we not targeting the vets? And then they all just like go out and
Because we couldn't fucking win an HOH. That's why we couldn't target
Yeah.
the vets. It was so frustrating.
that's true. Yeah, because it was Chelsea 1, 3, and 5. Amber himself won the one right after that at 6.
It was Chelsea and Joshua.
Kaser won one of those.
Chelsea and Joshua switched HOHs and Kaser won one.
Kaser nominating Chelsea, yikes.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that because both Amber and Alex Shelley was a big contributing factor to Keaton, Kaser, Luke being backdooring quite literally the only ally that they had left in the game.
In their defense, they were literally getting like gaslit from multiple directions.
Literally everybody in
So,
the house.
like,
Oh,
Every
was- I
single
feel so
person.
bad for
Every
house.
single person.
everybody.
It was really good though.
From Angie, from Amber, from
it
Shelley.
felt really fucking good. That was a lovely.
I
movie.
should have been
That was a rush.
backdoored out the ass. Like I should have been gone. There's no way that I should have survived that cycle
Yeah.
with Kaser winning HOH.
And Kaser
There's no way
backdoor.
I
was
should have
probably
survived
the
that
biggest
cycle. Like,
gaslight moment in our org's history. I
Yeah.
swear.
Kaser backdoors
The
only
entire
ally
house.
left, and then immediately goes out right after in the double. So
One thing I will
Crackhead
say in
ability.
Kaser's defense is that might have been a little bit of like identity shit, because I think at that point they knew it was me,
that's true.
and like I don't think that they wanted to get rid of me. So like I know that they know it wasn't in their best interest, and like I kind of want to just like defend them a little bit.
Oh yeah,
You know.
that tracks.
Okay, it's kind of meta, but still, you know, they kind of knew.
Okay, meta happens.
But
Yeah.
I know. So
Everyone before me stands 2 queens. It's time for the top 2. I think it should come as no surprise who the top 2 is. I think like it's kind of just agreed upon universally.
2 agents of chaos.
Literally.
Yeah, to say the least. But yeah, this is kind of what it's all been coming down to, because obviously when I reveal number 2, it will reveal number 1. But I will say
Crazy.
that the number 2 for this is my personal number 1. But the number 2 spot for the winner
She didn't
ranking,
win. Fuck yeah.
the number
Fuck
2
it.
spot
Oh.
is indeed Miss Jen Deterno from BB
Yes.
Rewinds 11.
Swan is way too
Icon,
happy for the wrong reasons.
legend.
Listen,
Swan's
Swan
loyal enemy.
hates women.
Yeah,
she fucked me twice. Okay, can
No,
I not
Swan
be
just
a
hates
little
Arya.
mad?
But yes, we have
I love Arya.
we
That's part of
have
the
Arya
problem.
from Big Brother Rewinds 11. Yes, I could genuinely talk for hours about Arya's Big Brother Rewinds 11 game. There's so much.
Well,
fun.
let me fucking start. I've
But
had
yeah,
wine.
Swan, you were more than
Let
welcome.
me
By the way,
fucking
he's literally
start.
putting up his hair
Wow.
right now. He needs his hair back
I was-
off his
yes,
face.
He
Literally,
has 2 seasons worth of trauma to let out
literally
here.
tying my hair into 3 seasons. Thank you, because she technically tanked me on her way out in the motherfucking Traders.
That's true.
She was so iconic in Traders. You don't even
She
speak enough
was.
for that.
Listen,
She
Arya
was
doesn't-
so iconic.
Here, similar to what I said about Chelsea earlier, part of the reason Sheila was so bitter in 9 is because I felt like I had made these genuine loyal connections. And Arya was the top of that list. I'm pretty sure I had Jen as my number 1 above my own fucking like assigned partner, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
That's just a guess, but and that's the thing, is everybody has Arya number 1 in every fucking game she plays, because she's so good. She's so social. She's so strategic. She does batshit insane. Like, I know we're talking about like her winning 11 game, but we do have to touch on the fact that she literally got herself evicted during 9 in order to make sure that me or Sharon did not come back, because she knew that was going to be the spec vote, and she wanted to make sure that we did not come back and that she wouldn't like it's that kind of shit that she's willing to do. Speaking of the 11 game,
I love
like
that so much.
it's the fact that she fucked up her relationship with Ray and was able to build it back to a point where they became final 2. Like,
Yeah.
she had multiple. She is the perfect example of somebody who is able to recover from fuck ups so well. She could be at the bottom of the fucking barrel and claw her way back to the top. Except for, I guess, as Alison Grodner, because I fucking ended her. But that's okay, because she ended me right back in return. No, Arya is just a magnetic personality. She is a strategic force. She's a social legend. We won't talk about her comp abilities. That's fine. What was her ranking on your list? I think she's better in 11 than she was in 9, but she's not great in either, if I remember correctly.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
You know what? Some people aren't comp
She
girls,
is
and that's
in
okay.
the 11th spot. So
She
not
does win
is-
a
The fact that
clutch
she's-
veto.
Yeah.
That's
After
true. No,
she gets
because that's the
exposed.
because that's the veto she would have gone home during had she
Yes.
not won. And the fact that she won that key competition and gave herself that amount of time. I mean, the biggest gag in 11, at least where I'm concerned, because like I went early, but like an inactive flop bitch won the. Chima's never gonna listen to this. I can call her a fucking bitch. I don't care. An inactive flop bitch won HOH and made up a Vets Alliance rumor, which was true. Of course, we fucking made an alliance, but it wasn't like loyal or anything. Anyway, I was like, I'm putting 2 vets on the block because they're clearly like in an alliance together. So she put me and Jen because we were seen as like the most social, like do blah 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 blah.
Which I think was
I was.
good, but-
Yeah, no, I agree. Yes, I totally understand it from an inactive flop bitch's perspective why she put us up.
Well, yeah, of course.
So anyway, I was up against Jen. I was head of the popular cliques, which are the social players. She was head of the oddballs. You would fucking think that the fucking popular coach would come out on top. No, she had members of my own clique not wanting to vote to keep me. And that alone speaks to her social prowess.
Absolutely.
Literally, the fact that like social members of the social clique are choosing not to keep their social coach queen, like that's it. On like that's the easiest way to simplify it. Like she
Sure.
overpowered the social veteran of the season and got my own people to turn against me pretty early in the game too. Like she had dug their claws into them so quickly.
Absolutely.
And with that social game, she was just leaking alliances nonstop and creating them nonstop to keep people trusting her and keeping like an additional secret for her to share with someone so they would like keep trusting her through the game. And with that momentum earlier on in the game, she made flips happen. She pushed for Ronnie to go. She made the Braden flip happen on him when he went out with the coup d'etat. And she didn't even know he had the coup, but that was pretty much her single-handedly using her influence to get what she wanted in the game. But because
She
I
is the
felt like her
blueprint.
game,
She's the
what?
Amber blueprint. Like
No,
literally.
literally. But I do feel that her game was very chaotic. She was leaking so much that it was very risky. And eventually, people
It's
compared
high
her.
risk, high reward.
Yeah, it was high risk, high reward, and it was working so well. But eventually, she got caught and got very blatantly targeted and needed to win a veto to survive, as we mentioned. But she won that veto. And when people were targeting the vets that round, her ally Steven was able to make a big plea, a Hail Mary to the HOH who was just targeting Jen and him, and convinced her not to nominate him. And then with that, it was Casey versus Zach on the block. And Jen flipped back and forth a million times on which one she was evicting. She started voting for Zach and then switched to Casey and then switched back to Zach and then was in on Zach and then tried to switch back to Casey. But seconds before that, the last vote came in and the votes were locked. So Zach's fate was sealed by a 1 vote difference that she tried changing seconds too late. So then she was stuck having to support this vote and publicly called out Lydia and like played confused, framed Lydia and got Lydia's own allies to believe it was Lydia and used this as an excuse to separate her and Steven. And so then people go from thinking the vets are this big alliance to thinking that Jen and Steven are against each other, even though they were fully in lockstep through all of this scheming behind everyone's back. And she just immediately recovered after being caught and was set up so well in Endgame and won Jeff back and had Laura trusting her stupidly. Sorry, Laura. So she ate that.
I
I
mean,
want
Yeah,
to
no,
Arya
no,
so
I
bad.
agree.
She
I
sounds
agree.
like so much fun.
Oh no, this is why we like. Yeah, she. It would have been so fun seeing her play next to Cole in 14. It would be so fun to see you and her in the same
I wanted
season
it so
because
bad.
the three of y'all are like, and Graham as well, are that kind of like top tier social strategic threat that is just
I
like
think Swan
cannot
called
be
it a
fucked
mist
with.
off. He said the
What?
mist.
Yes.
He called it
Yeah.
the mist off.
Yeah, exactly. The four of you, Arya, Cole, Alex, and Graham, have the strongest mist I've ever seen in orgs, where you can actively get people to do things against their better. Like it's just insane. It's just insane. I'm like I have a good social game. I think I'm a good social player. I think I'm a strong org player. I don't hit all the time, obviously, as the series knows. I don't have fucking mist like that. I can't fucking do shit like that. You know, it's godlike. It's fucking weird. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's
A different
amazing.
level. Arya's a different level though.
Yeah,
Like,
Arya's insane. Like I said, that's part of the reason like I
Crazy.
fucking like was so mad is because she was so good that I was like, how could you betray me? You were like my everything.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
that her convincing the cast that Lydia was the vote flip after accidentally voting the wrong way. is one of the best moves in PP Rewind's
Even Laura
history.
believed it. And
Like,
Laura
Well, because that's the
totally
thing is
put
like
in.
the mistake should be the bad move, like right, like that should be
Yeah.
what knocks her down, like that she fucked up this vote, that she didn't get her way. But the fact that she was able to so easily like get it thrown onto Lydia, like take no
but it ended up being
repercussions, like
so good for her. That's the other
Yeah.
thing is she ended
Yeah.
up like turning it into something like that was
This-
game changing and winning.
This is
for
the
her.
same cycle where she had to win a do or die veto, and then she's the swing vote, and then uses her fucked up vote into giving her game new life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, I could talk for years about this. BB Rewinds 11 is like my favorite season of Rewinds,
Yeah.
and Arya as Jen is such a big part of that. I know this is crazy to say, but in my mind, like Jen DeTurno is like the Dan Giesling of Big Brother Rewinds.
Absolutely. She just
Fucking
did it in
insane.
reverse.
But it is. And
Yeah.
they're just genuinely, I remember being in awe at one point because I went to Jen's confessional during the season and she was literally taking notes in her confessional about certain bits of information and when to leak it and when it's beneficial to her to leak it and what is going to like benefit her at that point to do it. And I'd never like even
That's so fucking smart.
conceptualized. Yeah, I'd never even conceptualized that in my head. But like
I was gonna ask about this because one of like I obviously didn't spec this season, but
Mhm.
like just kind of hearing people talk about it, one of the things that kind of stands out to me is like the leakiness of her. But it sounds like she
Yes.
was very, very strategic and pointed with when
Oh,
she leaked,
absolutely.
and that is that's it's such a fine like needle to thread because
Yeah.
It's
you
so
know you
hard
don't
to
want to
know.
so you don't want to like not only like make yourself just seem like a leaky like untrustworthy ally, but like you also don't want to seem overly connected, you
Yeah.
know, because like
Yes.
that can very easily backfire. Like, oh wait, how do you know that?
Mhm.
What are you talking about? You know, so
Mhm.
like it sounds like she just really did that, use that to her advantage, and that's incredibly impressive and hard to do.
Absolutely.
I learned so much about playing orgs from playing with Arya, from hosting and spectating Alex, from hosting and spectating Graham, from hosting, spectating, and playing with Cole. And like, yeah. I remember the first time I played Survivor, I DM'd both. I think, like, I DM'd Alex to be like, "This whole leaking thing, can you tell me, like, how does it
Our
work?
little
I'm
leaking
confused."
workshop. Oh my god, that was so fun. Be like, oh, I am so happy to tell you about this.
Yeah.
Yes,
awesome.
very much.
Yeah, there just isn't enough that could possibly be said about
Jen DeTurno
this winning
and
game
Arya.
in my mind.
And Arya is also our first winner of color of the season.
Yes, like
Which-
Yes.
Of the series, yeah.
Of
Period.
the
And
series.
it's a woman of color, period.
Woman of color. Well, she was the first winner of color, period.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
she's the first woman of color.
Which is extra great that it was a woman of color.
I was gonna say we
Thank
just love
God.
when it's women first.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you see, like even Jack mentioned it, you see her identifying what is good for her and doing it as early as like round 2. Ronnie is literally in alliances with multiple people that aren't Jen, and she knows about it because people tell her things, and she gets picked to play in that veto, has decided that she wants to target Ronnie so that she gets people out that she knows has alliances without her in it. Guns for that veto, wins veto round 2 so she can lock noms, and then fully flips the vote onto Ronnie.
Which,
And
you know, she can say
I'm
she got
so-
out the
I'm-
real Ronnie from Big
I was
Brother.
about to say,
Yes,
and
that
I
too.
can and I can say, I was about to say, I'm sorry that the IRL Ronnie of BB11 wanted to be in an alliance with me and not her.
Period. But yeah, I think there's just so many examples throughout this season of what an incredible player Arya is and how entertaining she is and just all of it. And like she's in Jeopardy even as late as like she's nominated as the replacement nominee, the final 6 and the final 5. She's the replacement nominee against Casey, who is someone that has had her as her number 1 the entire game and has assumed that Jen is his number 1 as well. And up until Casey is literally evicted, Casey thinks that Jen is like his number one, and she's just like la da 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 and like running through
Yeah.
like the forest
She's
and stuff
fucking
like that.
crazy. No, but like
Agreed.
you're right that like she's the entertainment value. She's so fun to play with, and kind of what I was thinking about when I finally played with Cole and Pixel, and I was like, oh, I'm having so much fun. I'm not about to cut this man because I know he's a threat from another org. Like she's just so fun. When we started traders, I like once I figured out it was her, I went to my subs and I was like, I love Arya so fucking much. And Shinx was like, what? And I'm like, no, this is why I was mad. Like she's so good socially. Like it's I've always felt connected to her. She has a really good way to connect with people.
Yeah. And you see, even as late as the final veto, literally like Zing Party is happening. She's HOH. She's in the lead. Steven has genuinely been her ride or die for quite a bit now, like quite a bit of time. And she knows that if she wins veto, that Steven will expect that she uses it on her. But she also knows that she can't beat Steven in a lot of competitions. So she goes out of her way to throw veto to Lara. It's so that she evicts Steven and she doesn't even have to do it and she doesn't get any of the blood on her hands. It's just shit like that. I will remember until like the day I die, the celebration that we had in Spec Lounge, not only when Gen 1 Final 4 HOH to like be confirmed into Final 3, but also when she won that final HOH and we all knew that she was going to be in the final
The
2.
913 redemption.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
was about to say the
and
part
there's
you're
the
missing
whole
is part of
thing.
the reason we were celebrating is because of her last Zing Party performance.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
all-time worst.
And also, there was this whole thing about that like haunted her the entirety of 11, where she made the wrong decision and evicted Joshua instead of Chelsea. So for her to get all the way back to the same spot and win that final HOH again and make the correct decision in evicting Laura, it was everything you could possibly want, like in a storyline for a season.
I mean,
I
she
can
still would have
never-
beat Laura though, right?
I think it would have been closer, but I
It
think
would
she
have been closer. It was still the right decision, but she still would have probably beaten
I
Laura
believe
if I remember
so.
correctly. Yeah.
I would have to imagine so. But yeah, I can't celebrate her enough as a winner of the series because she brings everything you could ask for, the entertainment value, the storylines, having these 2 seasons and having her be such the main character of both seasons and so fun to watch. She's an all-time legend, clearly a top 2 legend of the series. So we're thankful to have her.
He is a force of nature. Like I've never seen anybody like by sheer willpower so much be able to just do whatever they want. Like in an org, I've never seen it. So and she shares that with our number 1 person.
Yes, what a segue. Obviously, if you've been keeping track of the list of winners, you know that there's only one option left for the number 1. We've talked about him once. We've talked about him twice.
Oh God.
It's one last time, people, because at the number 1 spot, the best Big Brother Rewind's winner, according to the masses, according to Jack, according to me, all of it, is indeed Julia Roberts from Big Brother Rewind 7 All Stars.
So you may hear a ghost wooing in the background, and that would be the final 2 partner on All Stars, Lori Laughlin from Prison.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to share about your Ride or Dies game?
She's zooming in from her jail cell currently.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. For me, I went into that season so intimidated because it was All Stars, and again, this was my second org ever, and I didn't even expect to get asked back from 6. And I latched on to Julia so quickly, which it makes me feel better in hindsight because everybody latched on to Julia because it's Cole.
Absolutely.
Like everybody thought they were Julia's number 1. I was actually Julia's number 1, so like I won
Because
that.
he thought you were Shannon, but
Because he thought I was someone else. And then at one point,
but
he
that's
also thought
besides
I was
the point.
Boom, which is even funnier, right? So throughout that season, like, I mean, obviously there were times where I was helping Cole by telling him when Jeevan was going after him and things like that. But by the time I got to final 2, I was like, listen, I could already see I'm like Cole, Julie at the time has played like a ridiculously amazing game. I mean, has gone into an all-star season against the all-stars at that time of BBR and not just dominated, but dominated in every single way, socially, strategically, and competition wise, like knew when she needed to win competitions and won pretty much every single time that she needed to, but also was able to always come back from a bad situation and somehow make it better and like almost improve her positioning.
Yeah.
And so when we got to final two, I was like, I have seen no way in which I win this game, but I didn't want to just like not try because it would have been boring. But I was very, very happy. Like I was happy it was split 5-4 because that felt nice. Like it's kind of sad when you lose like unanimously.
I was rooting for you, girl. I was rooting for you so hard.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank
I
you.
was a Lorinator.
I said,
I
fuck
was
Thank
rooting
you.
for
Well,
Julia.
don't sell yourself short, because if you would have had me be 9th place instead, I would have voted for you over her. So
Yeah.
Well, but and I think part of it was just that Julia burned more people, which we can get into that part of that. But Julia,
Oh, we will.
for the
We'll get into the lore during of it all.
Julia a little bit went scorched earth in order to save me, which put me in a better position in final two. But Julia was the rightful winner of that game. I'm so glad Julia won because I think that season would be not nearly as good as it was if I had won. Not because I don't think I was like, I don't think I would have been like a horrible winner. But I think that Julia was just like, I mean, she's number one winner for a reason. Like her game was literally insane. And
You would
in
be in,
playing
you
with
would be
her,
in the top tier too, sis. So like,
yeah,
don't be
I
too.
mean, she literally
you-
would I can firmly say she would not have won without you.
Yeah.
So
You played that game
And-
top to bottom, girl. You owned that game. Please, this is not gonna. I'm not gonna let you be like, my game wasn't as good. You almost won for a reason. You fucking ate.
it's just hard because I don't think my game was bad in any way, but just like when you put it next to Cole's just so insane. Like
that's
he's
just
so
you know what I mean?
and playing with him, like I
And you
never
lost to his insanity by 1 vote, which means you're amazing.
thank you. But like
Speak on
I've
it.
never I mean I've not played a lot of orgs obviously, but playing with him and watching him in real time plan 7 cycles ahead and like accurately predict like what he had to do and what needed to happen. I mean, not always accurately. Sometimes he was just like psychotic, but that's just Cole. But like I would be like, okay, it's week 4. He's like, okay, I'm thinking week 8. I'm like, well, can we just get through this week? I was like, I'm day by day right now. But he was always thinking towards the end game, which is why I'm sure we'll get into it, why he was able to save me in the double where Jeevan left. It's why he was able to rein in Ashley and then knew to evict her at Final Four. I mean, it was just like he planned everything. He just always thought ahead. I mean, his mind is a horrifying place. It really is. I mean, I cannot explain enough how scary he is, but
Yeah.
love him,
Yeah.
of course.
So walking through like how the game played out for him, that social game was a key component of having all these people feel so close to him. I mean, he has his actual ride or die alliance with you. He has Laura, of course, thinking she's his number one. He has
Which she was his number 2.
True. And he does have Lana as well up there. His
Mhm.
connection with Cher as one of his
Mhm.
alliances. He has
I mean, Ashley at one point he got her back. He was close with her, and then they kind of went away, and then he ended up being like I think her number 1 at the end until he evicted her or until she got evicted.
Yeah, so like
I mean,
earlier
yeah.
on in the game, he's pretty much trying to direct sides at each other, spreading this ABC alliance as a threat at the looming large alliance of Abby, Bernie,
Jackson
and
needs to
Derek
talk about that.
in a row.
No, I've talked about it enough at this point. There's no
We're
new ground.
moving along.
There's no new ground.
And he was hoping for the power to swing and it didn't. So then this week where Betty wins the HOH and
Jesus.
he knows the nomination pool is himself, Lori, and Cher. So he says, all right, I just need to keep Cher out of this veto and get her backdoored. So let me just volunteer to be on the block with my ride or die ally in the pre-jury phase of this game so we can pull that off. And
And it
goes
works.
exactly according to plan, like exactly as he planned it. Then the coup d'etat comes in, and his trio with Lori, and then you having Jeevan slash Liz as an extension, and you guys all trusting each other. You all fumble your coup d'etat guesses out the gates in a paranoid rage. So then Julia figures out the clue and is like, all right, if we can't have the coup d'etat, let's choose who gets it, and tells Laura the answer. Laura
Mhm.
gets the answer. And at this point, where Julia pretty much is like, all right, I have Laura in my back pocket for now. Little did she know that Laura, after Julia on Laura's HOH, pretty much votes the opposite way from what Laura wanted. She burns some trust there. And Laura's like, all right, do I need to use the coup on Julia? Up to the last minute, the coup ends up being due. Laura's like prepared and going back and forth on like, if I'm using it, it's on Julia. Am I using it? Am I not? And ultimately, she's like, I'm so close to Julia that I just can't do that to her. We have such a tight alliance. I can't. I wouldn't do that to her. She spares Julia the one time Julia would be in danger. The very next cycle, Laura is the one in danger. Julia is the deciding vote. And Julia gets Laura out of the game as Laura is begging and pleading to her, saying, please, please don't do this to me, Julia. You can't do this to me. He kicks her out and gets a scorned message from Laura as she leaves. All the meanwhile.
And then immediately we go into the double, by the way.
Yeah, it's
like
the double.
20 minutes after this, we go into the double. There's no break.
It's so good. It's just coming at the worst possible time.
It's truly the most scorched earth thing I've ever seen in an org.
It's bad.
It's
Like,
insane.
ever. It was crazy.
And yet,
And yet.
So
that's so
this
Julia.
Julia pulled it out, and she was looking at the double and was like, all right, there are scenarios here where Lori or I go home. So before she voted out Laura, she was putting in work throughout the day, leaking to Ashley about Alana, Liz, Lori alliance, basically being like, hey, I know that we were against each other here, but we need each other. This threat exists, because she wants to get ahead of Liz on the curb there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also was pretty much trying to seem like a public threat with Zoe and pretending like she was actually going to vote with Zoe and not vote against Laura, and lets Liz think that she convinced Julia to flip Julia's vote onto Laura. So there's all this 3D chess going pretty much just to gaslight everyone and make nobody understand where she actually lies. She wants nobody to understand who's loyal to who in this game. That way, when it's double time and Ashley wins the HOH, Liz goes to her and says, all right, we need to get Julia up. She's been running the game. And Julia was one step ahead of her and was able to have information queued up, ready to convince Ashley to spare her, promises Ashley her vote. Then Zoe wins the veto, and pretty much Liz gets nominated for eviction, and Julia has a kill file on hand of information against Liz that she copies and pastes to Zoe. And it's all this information of the time she goaded Liz into shit talking Zoe. And she uses
so
that
good.
and gets Zoe to evict Liz at that point.
And can I also add,
and then I cried on the VC. I cried on the VC.
I cried that night. We had 2 minutes left before the vote. Me and G-Man are just like, I love you. I'm so sorry. Like, it should be me. And then literally like a minute left before the vote's due, and Zoe texts me and Julia separately and says, are you close with Lori? And are you close with Julia? And we're both, and like, I think I was like, kind of. I didn't know what to say. And then Julia was like, no. And I still don't know why Zoe asked us that, because she still voted to keep me. But like, I don't know.
We talked about in a few other people what like their game winning moves are. In my mind, like far and away, it's that double eviction and Julia getting Ashley to renom and evict Elizabeth over him.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. But
yeah, to me,
sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was mainly gonna agree with you. To me, there are two tentpoles of Julia's game. Number one is being the ride or die with Lori and sharing all possible information at all times. And the fact that Lori was also ride or dies with Julia's biggest op, but Lori was more loyal to Julia, meaning anything that came from Jivan as Elizabeth went straight to Julia, which is insane. Like, that's crazy, and that's how like everything happened. Like, it's basically all Sydney's fault.
When you think about it,
no regrets.
No,
And
I
then
love
the
that
other
for you, Queen.
the other tent
support
pole
you.
I would say is Laura fucking Dern. Laura fucking Dern, who had every reason to use the coup on Julia, decided
True.
not to, then swore she would never vote for Julia ever in any circumstance. She was going to be a bitter ass bitch till the very end. And then what did she do? Cast the deciding vote for Julia to win. And that's power, baby. That's
Oh, yeah.
power.
He
And
said,
that's
"I'm
why
getting my
I had,
spot on the DVD cover. Let it be
yeah,
known."
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
just
that's
like,
why I had to give the edge to Julia in the
yeah,
end, because that game is just so fucking
it's
powerful.
crazy. Because quite literally, I think at a certain point, every single person in that cast thought that they were Julia's number one. And
Yeah.
Yes.
if it ever got to the point where they didn't think that anymore, it was too late and you were getting evicted.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the moment you did anything that was even remotely out of line or was like even questioning, you were gone.
Yeah,
Like, it was-
Lana
If
was
you raised
literally
a hand against me, you died. You raised a hand.
Lana was
Finger.
I
actually
kind
not
of love a
hand.
loyal to
Godfather game.
Julia.
It's like really powerful. It's good times.
It's crazy.
Lana was fully
sorry.
loyal to Julia, but just didn't give her like enough energy and reassurance. So Julia was like, "I don't need you. I don't trust you. Be gone." And
Yeah.
so
And
Yeah.
Lana's eviction, like Lana was such a power player, like not necessarily like a character presence, but like a social threat. Like Lana was in with everyone. She
Yeah.
was good at competitions. Like Lana was a very strong threat. And it was like within 2 days, suddenly she went from being one of the top powers in the house to being evicted. It was so quick. And it was because Julia just made that decision of I no longer find Lana like useful to my game. And once Julia flipped the switch and put the work in, like Lana literally was gone. It was so crazy how fast it happened. I was like, damn, Lana, like kind of flopped. Like I thought you were slaying. But
Lana Del Flop.
Lana Del Flop.
Lana Del flop in a sense, yes.
don't tell that to Cody.
But yeah, it really is just I will say I think I largely had Julia as two in a lot of situations just because of my bias for Jen. Um and I think
Yes.
when I was thinking about it, there were like that like one or two times when but the thing is it's not that she even was in danger. It was like the possibility of her being in danger. And then it never even like got to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
She planned ahead for every single situation.
Mhm.
For me, it was splitting hairs, deciding who to put first. I went with Julia over Jen because I felt that Jen more so got caught playing the game she did, which
Sure.
led to her weakest moment
That
and
never
then
happened with Jen.
inspired the veto competition win. While I felt like Julia's weakest moment was more so Laura just using logic and what was in front of her, while that relationship was so strong that it defied logic and she was able to win Laura
Yeah.
over and
Literally.
play
Yeah.
that game.
Julia kind of got caught, but nobody did anything about it. People would have done stuff about it after Jen got caught, you know?
Well, it's
Yeah. And they
kinda
tried
hard
to,
with
but they just couldn't.
the biggest
Yeah.
person trying to mount a resistance against her was Liz, and Liz was telling everything to Lori, who was closer to Julia. So it's like when
Yeah.
you have that like useful of a duo and a partnership where you're working in tandem like that to keep each other safe, and you're shutting down even any potential conversation of an uprising, then that's how you keep a lock on the game.
Yeah.
Also, let's be real.
And
What
I
the
love
fuck was Jeevan gonna
It's so
do? Jeevan had to
powerful.
win a comp to do something. So
And I will say I'm probably
Not another
biased.
stray. Not another out of pocket stray.
I'm probably biased. I haven't spec'd a lot of the seasons, so I can't say for sure. And BBR is known for having strong duos. Okay, Jack, you're done. Um, stop. But I will argue. I don't care if I'm biased. I still think me and Cole in seven were the strongest duo.
I
We were
absolutely
at day one.
Absolutely.
We were
hands down.
day one, like literally day one, and I still think there's not been a duo that has been like truly ride or die and also dominated. Because
Yeah.
the ride or dies nowadays, either you guys they're fake bitches and they're not actually loyal, or they're ride or dies and it gets cut off at the throat earlier in the game.
Yeah. No, fully, I would say
Maybe.
we do not need a podcast for it. You guys are the best duo.
Yeah.
You guys are Cole and Lori Laughlin are also the best final two we've ever had personally in terms of gameplay, at least from my opinion.
I would probably.
Oh.
So
Wow,
I
I didn't know you guys thought so well of my game. I don't really look
Yeah.
back on my game in that season as like particularly. I'm just such, you guys know, like I've played 3 orgs. One of them was Pixel, 2 of them were BBR, and I'm a mess each time. I don't know what's going on. I'm literally going minute by minute, day by day. So there's really not a lot of forethought except for when I
I
try.
mean, look at it this way. Put yourself next to any other person on that cast based
you
on
win.
the game they played that season and who would deserve to beat you in the end, you know?
I muted myself because I had to go pee, but I have wireless earphones, so I was able to hear everything. And I literally stopped myself mid wine pee to come back and agree with whoever said that it's the best top. It was Graham, right?
Yep.
The best top 2 of with Cody and Nicole being probably shortly in behind. I would have to.
I would
yeah.
agree.
I would have to.
Yeah.
I would have to look at a list to guarantee that.
100%.
But
Cody and
Sydney,
Nicole were pretty amazing.
Sydney, the people wanted you to win.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it was because we were just sick of like Julia getting her
Well,
fucking
that's
way.
yeah. Part of
And
it
the
was
jury
Julia
vote-
got
the
villain of
jury
the season.
The
that
jury
season,
vote
by the
going
way.
her way again was just one other annoying thing to add to the list. It was like literally, how does this woman do it? But you played such an incredible game. Would have
Thank you.
deserved to win had the votes gone your way. Because you didn't have to bitter Betty, you didn't have to like burn people the way she did.
But you know what this is? This isn't the runners up podcast.
Nah.
baby.
Exactly.
This is the winners podcast.
Exactly.
So we're gonna
And
give
you know what?
a round of applause.
And
to
Krista
Cole.
was
Because
the
he
number
fucking
1
ate that.
best BBR winner.
And
Sorry,
I think
sorry,
that's
not
actually
Krista,
part of
Julie.
why he's the best winner is because people were rooting so hard for Sydney, and Sydney played such an incredible game and did not win, and he still beat Sydney. You know what I mean? Like that goes into part of it for me.
And I
It's
think like
he
deservedly.
he beat the other like fucking best, you know?
But yeah,
And that's powerful.
we've been talking about this for so long, and it's so. This was one of the things that I've kind of been looking forward to doing since we kind of started the whole
It was so much
podcast thing.
fun.
So I'm really excited that we get to do it, and I hope we get to do more similar things. I know we've been talking about doing also a seasons recap, or not a seasons recap, but a seasons ranking.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
And
Maybe
similar-
next off season.
Yeah, maybe next. It is kind of a lot of work, so maybe not reserved for this specific off season.
No.
No, this will be
but yeah, I would love to do that too, and thank you all so much for spending your time, spending quite a few
Thank
hours
you.
of putting this together, and
And thank you to whoever listens.
I know, yeah,
Besides
Yeah, you guys are the real
winners just
troops.
besides the winners just being egotistical and wanting
Yeah,
to know
that's
where they
scrolling through until they hear themselves. But yeah, if you're still listening to this and you made it this far, then like
Good for
congratulations.
you.
Like,
God bless.
yeah,
I'm convinced this is what people like just go to sleep to, and they're just sleeping.
Wait,
Yes.
wait. I want code word. We need a code word for people to DM us if they actually listen to the
Oh,
entire
yeah.
podcast.
Okay,
GM
Wink.
Jackson Pineapple. If you listened to this,
sure, why not? Yeah,
Starfish.
if you're here, you're still listening. You made it all the way through.
Yeah,
DM
chocolate
Sydney
starfish.
chocolate starfish, the
Yes.
pineapple starfish.
Yes. Yeah, DM one of the hosts, Starfish, and just that if you're still here.
Yeah.
Thank you
And we
again,
love all of our
everybody.
winners, regardless of
Yes.
rank.
We
We
love
really
all
do.
of you.
We love all of
You-
you.
Think of how many people have played BBR and they won. Like that's and there's been a
Amazing,
lot
yes.
of amazing
Yeah,
players.
it's a very select group. Very few people can say it, and we love all of you guys. And thank
and one
you so
person
much,
said it 3
Jack,
times.
for being the co-host.
Mhm.
Thank you so much to all my other lovely hosts. You guys are great, and we'll
Yay.
see you guys next time on the Rewinds Rewind.
Yay.
Bye.
And then Rachel, bye.
Bye.